do that, but obviously,
But we don't have to make.
yeah, I understand.
If you.
Latest was not us. So go give it the benefit of the doubt.
Right, everybody, 5 o'clock. Going.
That's right. It's at this.
All right, we start off with board introductions. Jeffrey, you want to start us off?
Jeffrey Corey, Franklin County.
Oh, I'm sorry, Heather. We'll start with Heather.
Heather Furman, Chittenden County.
Jeffrey Corey, Franklin County.
Ryan Kilborn, Orange County.
Don Valson Giacomo, Washington County.
Addison County.
Well, Orleans County.
Martin Van Buren, Rutland County.
Dick Burnham, Windsor County.
Richard Craig, Lamoille County.
That's Diamond, Grand Isle County.
All right, we'll do department introductions. Oh, I'm sorry, those online.
David Dean, Wyndham County.
That's it.
No. Hogan was there.
Neil.
I'm here too. My name is Monica Zuckerman and I'm from Essex County.
Okay, we're just doing board introductions at this point. So
I apologize.
no problem. Neil,
Muted.
you muted, Neil.
Minute ago.
Neil, can you hear us? Have Neil Hogan online. Okay, turn it over to Commissioner for Department Staff Introductions.
Sure, I'm Jason Batchelder, I'm Fish and Wildlife Commissioner, and I'll turn it over to John Austin.
Good evening, everybody. John Austin, Director of the Wildlife Division.
Hi, Andrea Short Sleeve, Chief of Operations for the department.
Stedman, Director of the Warden Service.
David Salisville, Program Manager for Wildlife Management.
Chris Saunders, Planner and Analyst.
Hannah Smith, General Counsel.
Hello, Black Bear Biologist.
Abigail Connolly, Principal Assistant to the Commissioner.
Good.
I don't think we have anyone online, do we, John? Just expecting it.
We just request you guys speak up on the far side, the AC
Hear
system's
anything.
kind of loud.
Megan Dooney is online. Hello, everyone.
Thanks, Megan. And we do have 2 wardens in the back, Lieutenant Scott.
Mike Scott, Northeast District Chief Warden. Ethan Coffey, I'm the Hyde Park Warden.
Yeah, and I'd like to say just a couple words about decorum over the last couple meetings. We've entered into some subject matter that draws sentiment that certainly welcome and feelings from constituents that we expect. But I would like to plainly state as we enter into these meetings that we need, with respect for one another in our messaging and our mannerism. I think we do a generally very good job of doing that. I want to restate that I expect that out of everyone here tonight, and moving ahead. I feel like we truly can't respect wildlife in a meaningful way without respecting one another. Can't see eye to eye on issues, and at least we can be civil. And I know that'll happen. So thank you in advance for your effort and past and tonight and in the future. So I really appreciate that.
All right, Neil, are you with us now? You want to introduce yourself?
Neil Hogan, Bennington County.
All right. Okay, first up on the agenda is approval of the previous meeting's minutes. Have a motion to accept the minutes. Discussion, further discussion. Favor say aye.
Aye.
All right.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Next up is the public comment section. I do also want to remind everybody, no hearing, jeering, or laughter, clapping during these public comments. Okay, first up, we have Kevin Lawrence.
I can speak from here. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Hear me? Yeah. So you folks been hearing from me since February or whatever, as we've tried to advance a bear petition with you folks. It's taken a very long time in ways that were not really very pleasing to any of us, I suspect. I think of a day like I had today where I had, venison sausage for breakfast. I checked my freezer and found I had carp in there that I had bow fished for. I set traps for beavers for a local town that had 18-inch culverts that were getting plugged up. And said to myself, gosh, I love to live in Vermont. I love fish and wildlife. I love what we do here. I've taken phone calls from people who are going to take my trapping class next weekend. There's a lot to celebrate. One thing I would like to see, though, is I would like to see your board come to meetings and have an organized department that leads you down the path to successfully voting on things. So you're not questioning, gee, what's the procedure? What's next? I think you folks should demand that as well as board members. I think you should be the folks who say, it seems like the department doesn't know how to do this quite correctly. Maybe they should practice a little bit ahead of time. Maybe we should expect that. Instead of hearing from a really good board member who said, I have to go to work tomorrow at 4 a.m. We can't stay up here forever. So I'm hoping today's meeting can have that kind of fluid motion so that you folks can feel like you're being able to advance this forward without having to say to yourselves, geez, what is next? What's going on here? Because you folks are volunteers. As board members, you shouldn't have to know what every next step is. You should just have a chance to vote yes or no on things. And hopefully you can vote yes to have an extended bear hunting season and then vote yes also to having 2 tags. You can get that done. We were promised that back in February. I think it's something that can happen. So anyway, thank you so much for your work.
Kevin. Sarah Gillen.
Okay, I'm going to sit also. Please vote yes to 80%, joining 80% of states and provinces in prohibiting killing mothers with children. That's killing 3, not 1. No to extending bear hunting season, putting hibernating families at grave risk. No hunters killing a second bear. Thank you. The survival of humans is at stake on the planet. Fish and Wildlife's definition of biological need changed. Only 2% of the land mass of the entire planet is still available to wildlife to live as they are needed and to maintain healthy ecosystems. Humans have disrupted the other 98. We think we have an overflow of wildlife here in Vermont, so much so that we sell off hundreds for the price of a permit. We must realize that all animals are sentient, family-oriented, creative, loving beings with important jobs who feel pain and terror. The planet is going through an unprecedented crisis on all levels. Humans are waking up to the need for biodiversity in our landscapes, that we cannot live without animals and plants who are vital to creating oxygen, clean water, and nutrient-rich soil for food. Wantonly killing wildlife is causing damage that may be irredeemable. We must update our direction. We must think globally, or at least nationally. Vermont still has some wildlife, but very little if you realize that it's the world's wildlife, not our entertainment supply. The biological need is not to provide prey for hunters. The biological need is for life on Earth to continue. We must learn to respect and value all living beings for the work they do to maintain life on Earth for everyone. As part of only 2% of the world, Vermont has the opportunity and the obligation to save and nurture all wildlife. We can be known as a leader in caring for the natural world that takes care of us. Our survival depends on it.
Up is Bert Saldy.
Yeah, Bert Saldy, Bear, Vermont. Back on February 18th, the Vermont Bowhunter Association read their petition. There was no meeting in March. April 1st, Kevin Lawrence and myself read our petition. April 22nd, second meeting in April, John Austin had made a statement that if the board could get this all done, they could accommodate getting this done for 27. On May 20th, you guys totally went against what you said on the 22nd of April. And I want to know why. Let's stop kicking the can down the road, folks. All we got.
Bert. Sophie.
Low water.
Yeah.
Hi. I attended the Maine Fish and Wildlife Board meeting and was surprised to see that the department changed course on two key recommendations. In February, the department recommended prohibiting the intentional killing of mother bears with cubs in sight, aligning Vermont with 80% of states and provinces that allow bear hunting. At the May meeting, this was neither mentioned nor explained. Bear cubs orphaned by this practice face near certain death by starvation, an outcome that is cruel and unethical. It deeply concerns me that an issue of such importance, Vermonters were apparently swept under the rug. We thank the board members who flagged this for future discussion. Regarding the proposal to extend bear hunting season by a month and an extra tag, the department's own bear expert, Camo, notes that healthy bear populations naturally peak and dip, and the beech nut production, bear's primary full food, already pulses every 2 or 3 years. With beech leaf disease now threatening Vermont's forests, why would we extend the season when their main food source is already under threat? Extending the season to mid-December also creates serious problems the board wasn't informed about. Vermont has no law preventing hunters from killing hibernating bears or prohibiting hounds from disturbing denning bears, including mothers with their cubs. Finally, we have documented cases of a mother bear shot and killed while her cubs were watched, with one cub later found starved to death in the river, and a hound on video encouraging his dogs to attack a bear cornered in a rock den. Most hunters don't act this way, but we need laws to address the ones that do. We ask the board to ensure both science, we ask the board to represent us and see that science is important and to see what we need to change and for the bears. Thank you.
Good, Sophie.
Hi, I'm a lifelong Vermonter. Grew up in a hunting family. But I want to encourage the board to ban killing of a mother raising her cubs. That just flies in the face of decency and values. And the same thing for potentially killing bears in their hibernating dens. It's not fair, and I think it demeans us all to say that that's okay.
And
Tomorrow.
right.
Hi. I'm hoping that you guys will adopt the regs of many, many other places prohibiting the killing of a sow with cubs. When you come upon your target, take 36 seconds to look around and see what's going on. That's your obligation as a hunter to know your target. If you see cubs, then don't shoot. And this extended season, bears need to be hibernating. They do not need to be spending calories running. And that's their focus. Their focus is eating to have enough food because they're not true hibernators. They need that cushion. We need to leave them alone and let them be safe in their den. Thank you for your time.
Linda. Andy Fallon.
Hello again, everyone. You'll hear from me a little bit longer in a few minutes. The first thing I wanted to say, though, is to thank you for keeping this issue. A very long meeting.
Can't hear you.
It's a very long meeting on May 20th, and we almost lost this issue, not on the substance. There were 100 people here. I'll try to speak up. There were 100 people online and here. There are over 100 who submitted comments about the killing mother bears with cubs. Those are all in the record. We came to the May 20th meeting and it almost got lost in the shuffle, but for a few members of this board raising the issue and saying we're going to talk about it at the next meeting. And that's what we're here to do. What I'd like to see, and I'd like to take Mr. Batchelder's statement itself about what we should do. He said the killing of mother bears with cubs is unconscionable. It is not an accepted hunting practice in Vermont. It's a practice that most Vermonters, hunters included, oppose. We have addressed this issue in 2023, and I was the one who raised it. I think it's wonderful. I think it was professional. I think it was right that the professional department staff brought it back up in February 2026 with a very strong recommendation supported by statistics as to why the education didn't work and you need the law. Mr. Batchelder also said in his statement last meeting, leadership is needed. Well, you are the leaders of this board and of the Vermont Fish and Wildlife. And so this is your opportunity. You'll hear more from me in a moment, but the record is full and complete. There are three major things from 2023 and three major things from 2026. One, my petition, March 2023. Number two, Ms. Camoes and the Bear Department's response and recommendation on my petition, 11 pages long, single spaced, agreeing with virtually every one of my points, except one. Go with education, not with the law change.
Wrap it up, man.
I pointed that out in my response on October 11th. The three things in 2026, you have the department's own February 18th report with statistics supported. You have number two, the 100+ comments from people universally supporting that rule change, including hunters and hounders, all said you shouldn't be killing mother bears with cubs. We don't support that. So the point is, don't kick this down the road. We have the information. Let's not lose sight of that again. Thank you.
We got Rod Coronado next.
Hi, Rod Coronado from the town of Orange, work and live at Sage Mountain Botanical Sanctuary, also the state director of Vermont Wildlife Patrol. Wanted to take a moment and just thank you as the board. Obviously, I've been coming to these meetings for a few years, and I was even a part of 258 trying to reform the board. Part of my concern was representation of divergent views on wildlife. And I just wanted to thank everybody because I think at the May meeting, we really represented and demonstrated some good decision-making following the science. And also keeping in mind social carrying capacity for hunting practices. I'm not opposed to the extension of the bear season to tag, but I am in support of that on the condition of a prohibition on the killing of sows with cubs, because I believe that the objective that we all are aiming towards is recruitment of new bear hunters and still managing our bear population, but recruiting new bear hunters with the good ethics and that knowledge of social carrying capacity, because as Neil Hogan mentioned at the last meeting, there is going to be times when hunters are going to be taking more time because they are going to be concerned about killing the sow with cubs. And yeah, they might miss their opportunity to shoot that bear, but you're not going to read about that in the newspaper. But you will if somebody shoots too fast and kills another cub in a high populated area. We got to or sow with cubs. And so it's about measuring that. And I really compliment you on the ability to do that. And I'm sure I trust you will do the same. And yeah, that's all I got for you. Thanks.
Rod. Is it Sarah? Somebody has a maybe next to their.
Me.
Good.
I just want Bill to know that there's a lot of misinformation out there. And this was actually from a post on Front Porch Forum from a hunter. And I hope you will do a better job in educating the public, because he says that bear dogs do not hunt bears in dens. They hunt like rabbits, dogs, or bird dogs, or most hunting dogs. They find a scent trail left by a very recently passed animal. Bears in dens are not traveling. Now, as you all well know, a bear can find a scent in a den. So this gentleman is a hunter and he has no clue to that. So he's totally uninformed on this particular issue. And how many others out there are uninformed who do not know the truth? And if you guys would do your part in educating the hunters and the public on the facts, I think we could get something done here that would be reasonable. Thank you.
Sarah. Got a Dennis Boggs that says a maybe.
I concur with
many of the things that have been said here about just being decent as a person. I think that's easy to understand. I think that's just intuitive and easy to understand for anybody. What I don't understand, and I would like someone to comment, why it's okay to kill bears in a den, but not okay to kill a mother with cubs. I don't get that because I see of those things pretty horrible.
Dennis. What's your order?
My name is Fred Schroeder from Bristol. I'm not here to talk about bears getting cubs being killed or sows being killed with cubs. I will say that I don't think, how did this morph into bears being killed in their dens though? They're hibernating, they're not being chased by dogs. Anyhow, I want to say there are tools, another tool I wanted to bring up to you guys about how to get rid of, how to alleviate the problem with bears in the state. We have a early season bear tag. In my opinion, it's not even necessary. And I'll tell you why. It's $5. More or less, it's just a way for us to register and find out how many bear hunters we have hunting. We know how many we've had. How long has it been going on? 10 years now, maybe longer. We know how many people participate in the early bear season. We don't need that tagging. And I'll tell you why. If I'm archery hunting during deer early archery season, and I didn't buy my early season bear tag. Didn't think I'd see a bear. Forgot. Here comes a big bear. Oh, I don't have my tag. Can't shoot it. That's one more bear that walks. That's one more bear that's out in the woods causing problems. A lot of bear problems. The early season tag isn't necessary. So I'm not here all together to talk about that. What I want to talk about is the panfish regulations. Right here in the LCI journal is an article written by fisheries biologist Sean Good, the same fisheries biologist who organized and orchestrated the panfish rules. He talks about an invasive round goby right here. Great article. Okay. He also orchestrated the panfish rules that promote invasive panfish in our trout ponds. How ironic. What's going on with this? Why? We know there's a problem with panfish in our trout ponds.
It up, Fred.
Why are we trying to protect panfish in our trout ponds? Can anyone see the sense in this? Something's got to change. This law was not written. You guys can understand the sense of that.
Fred. Last, Sarah Goslin. Where's Luke?
Name's on there.
Go ahead.
You can go first, but I'll go last.
Sheriff.
Oh, no worries. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Sarah Gorsline. I'm in Grand Isle. I'm testifying today on behalf of Project Coyote, who I represent in Vermont. We work on practical coexistence tools with wildlife agencies, farmers, hunters. I'm here to speak about the bear rules today. We strongly support the rule to ban the known killing of a mother bear with cubs. This rule would speak to the outliers in the hunting community. I know that most bear hunters would never even consider that as an activity. There have, though, been cases caught on camera that this rule would be intended to address. Those outliers in the hunting community are exactly who wildlife regulations are needed for. And it's not enough to just have a suggestion in the educational materials. We feel a rule is absolutely imperative. And so we hope that the board members will take up that rule. I also just wanted to speak to the fact that more generally, we disagree with extending the hunting season and issuing more bear tags. Our concern about extending hunting season is bears denning in late November. So I would love to hear the department and also board members speak to that issue if the season is extended. I'd also like to highlight the excellent work of bear biologist Jacqueline Comeau, who her work has greatly benefited the state and in terms of all of our knowledge of bears and studies about bears that are currently underway. So just wanted to thank Jacqueline Comeau for her work. And lastly, just wanted to say that we hope at Project Coyote to always address bear conflicts through practical solutions that often involve changing human behavior. We are very much in support of an eventual bill to promote bear-proof dumpsters and trash cans and educational initiatives by the department to further educate communities about how to coexist with bears. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. Anybody else in-house who'd like to speak? Go ahead.
My name's Pat Rada, and there's a couple things I'm gonna say first. First of all, I am a registered New Hampshire guide. I live in Barry. And not very happy with you folks. Seems like there's been some lies being told to you about baiting for starters. Might be a dead issue today, but I promise you, I will bring it back up. If you go, and I'm all for extending the bear season, at which point the bears that are out there are mostly lone boars. Sows are not a problem. I don't know how many of you guys have gone and found a bear's den in November, but I sure haven't. So that's another thing that's not really a concern. There's no reason to not have 2 bear tags in the areas that you have problems with. But by God, if you can go have 2 bear tags, you can have a bait season. Otherwise, you're just being hypocrites and you're pandering to others. That's just the way it is. There's no reason to not ever have had it. Any information I've heard out of the department biologist has been incorrect from my own talking to biologists around the country regarding artificial inflation of the population. If you have a bait season in September, by the time those sows go into the den in October, any short-term gaming is gone. A bear, when given full access, according to a study by Lynn Rogers graduate students, one of the top biologists in the country, where they've been given full access year-round to a supplemental feed, are only using it 30% of their time for the day. So they're not going to go and be an easy thing. And we don't feed them trash. My wallet tells you it doesn't feed them trash. I'll tell you that right now. Right now, I'll tell you right now, I'm buying granola and mixed nuts for New Hampshire. It's a pretty ridiculous thing that you guys have got. And I've got plenty of people that unfortunately didn't stand up, but are sure backing me online saying, you should have gone forward with this and at least considered it. And to not do it was foolish. And you want to protect the sows and the cubs, I'm all for it. What's the best way to do it? You sit and watch a bait pile. Is it better to go and have them coming into a cornfield where they're going mixed match and you don't know which trailer coming in, or be running behind a dog and get split up? I've been baiting over there in New Hampshire for 15 years. Between the cameras that I've got and watching the bears in person, not one lactating sow has been taken. Not one cub has been taken.
Wrap it up, that thing.
So I'm all for the extending the season and I'm all for doing the tags. But can that other thing, and until it's been proven in this state that shooting a sow and cubs has been a problem and proof, and there's no reason to go forward with it, not just hearsay over a few little pieces they got recorded, unfortunately, for the bears. They shouldn't have been shot.
Thank you. Mike, want to speak?
Yeah, Mike Covey, Executive Director of the Vermont Traditions Coalition. As far as extending the season and the 2 tags, just do it. The department's told you they need it. I want you all to keep in mind that this is not a popularity contest. It's about need, and that's what the department's expressing. So the other thing I want to talk about is
Can you stand over there? Because we can't hear you.
the other thing I want to talk about quickly is the sows with cubs. Department's vacillated on this 3 years ago. They said no. Now they're saying yes. Just do it. And make it knowingly. It has to have a knowingly component. I personally almost killed a sow with cubs in the White Mountain National Forest with a bow on the ground. I was moving through the woods, saw it ahead of me. And if that bear had moved 2 or 3 steps quicker, I would have orphaned those cubs. If the cubs had come out of the ferns 50 yards behind her 30 seconds later, I would have orphaned it. It has to have a knowingly component and it cannot include bears doing damage. I think statutorily, which Hannah can answer for you, I think that the bears doing damage is a statutory thing, so you can't include this. But with those two things, the only reason I can see for the department to just keep flip-flopping on this is because they're trying to place the weight somewhere else. Maybe that's not accurate, but that's my perception. So if you do it that way and you make sure that those two pieces are accounted for, then it's only going to impact people that are doing something that they know they shouldn't. Right? As has been expressed here, I don't know any hunters that are going to shoot a sow with cubs, you know, if they know, but you have to have that knowingly.
Thank you, Mike. Anybody else in-house like to speak? Okay, I see we got another board member joined us. David, you want to introduce yourself? David, can you hear me? Yeah, want to introduce yourself, David?
I'm sorry, I thought I had earlier.
Good.
David Dean from Wyndham County.
Just checking on you, Dave. Still, Wyndham County? All right.
Mr. Chairman, I'm awake.
I'm not. Anybody online to speak?
I'd like to speak if I could.
I thought we have
My
a
name-
numbered sequence here.
I was initially number one and then I went down.
Oh.
So I'm sorry, I'm gonna go real
About
quick,
that.
Barbara, because I have to
No
leave, but I want
problem.
to just go real quick. Thank you. My
Go
name is
right
Dennis
ahead.
Hill. Dennis Hill. I live in Middlesex, Vermont. I'm a lifelong Vermonter and I've been an avid hunter of turkey and partridge for most of my life. So I want to talk about ecological, ethical, social, and policy concerns about killing mother bears. And I do appreciate people calling them mother bears and not sows. I think sow really diminishes the sentient nature of the animal. So that's just my personal opinion. But mother bears play a big role in population stability for the bear population. There's a predator and prey dynamic that exists in Vermont that the bears are a part of, and killing mothers and ultimately their cubs can disrupt that and further disrupt local ecosystems. I think we hear about nuisance bears, and I heard a gentleman earlier talk about, bears that cause problems. We're the ones encroaching on their habitat, and there's a moral human obligation to coexist and protect wildlife rather than resorting to lethal measures. And I think that's super important. Social implication, I think communities opposed to killing of mother bears, and that negative public perception can lead to changes in the perception of wildlife management practices and ultimately impact policy and hunting as it exists in Vermont. Bears also play an important role in the recreation money that comes into Vermont. People come here because of the wildlife and the ability to see a bear in the wild. So I just think that killing mother bears with cubs can disrupt the ecosystem and raises ethical concerns about human encroachment on bear population and territory. And there's certainly more effective and humane approaches to managing bear population and reducing human wildlife conflict that exists currently. And I really appreciate the opportunity. And Barbara, thank you for letting me go. And I'm going to sign off because I have another 5:30 meeting. But thanks, everybody. And I appreciate the board listening to me. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Dennis. With someone else.
Tell you who's next. So the first person is Barbara Folletti.
Hi, thanks very much. I'm Barbara Folletti. I'm a property owner in Huntington. And I have sent a message to the board, which I hope that you've had a chance to read because it includes calling wardens in other states, but I will highlight a few key points. Regarding having a regulation that prohibits harvesting female bears with cubs, it is not about the number of incidents. It is about the need to have some substantive consequences for unethical actions, which we do not have right now. The concern about not wanting to prosecute a hunter who makes an honest mistake, that is valid, but using this as a reason not to enact a regulation is not, because 27 of the 35 states with bear hunting have regulations to prohibit harvesting female bears with cubs. And so I don't see any reason why Vermont cannot do the same. Instead of saying we can't do this because, the question should be, we have this concern, how do we address it? I also oppose the extension of the bear hunting season to mid-December. The only justification I saw that was provided was to provide additional hunter opportunity. There was no scientific basis presented or discussed. Even though the season extension creates serious concerns. Someone asked, what's all the talk about killing bears in dens? Well, it's because extending the bear season into December means that bears could be disturbed from their dens to be harvested. And Vermont has no regulation against this. So the board would be creating another situation where there are no consequences for unethical behavior, and in effect be greenlighting a form of wildlife cruelty and eroding the board and the department's credibility with the public. Now, I realize the vast majority of hunters are ethical and wouldn't do this, but if you do not have consequences for the unethical hunters, these things can still happen, and that is what the public is asking you to address. Just more broadly, I'm concerned about the lack of transparency in the decision-making. Earlier, someone said they were promised certain actions back in February, and I wonder, when did that happen? My point is that there has been no explanation for why the department dropped or changed some of their February recommendations. And I'm talking about originally the season extension was only to the end of November. There was support for a rule on sows and cubs. There was talk about giving wardens authority to revoke a bear permit and a reciprocity agreement for out-of-state residents. Yep. So I'm just asking that these recommendations respond to public safety concerns. And I feel that the department and the board owes the public a discussion about the rest of the recommendations instead of just disregarding them. So thank you very much.
Barbara.
We have Bruce.
You're muted, Bruce.
Still muted. I hear you.
Should be on the top bar, Bruce, if you can hear me. Maybe leaning toward the right side. Can you unmute him? Nope. Okay. Bruce, maybe we'll run to the next person in line, and when you get it figured out, just put your hand up.
Is Lisa Jablo?
Sorry, I couldn't manage to make my mute button work. Thank you, Lisa Jablo, Brattleboro. I would like to add my voice to those trying to understand why the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department has apparently changed positions without explanation on the length of the bear season extension and killing mother bears with cubs. Back in February, they supported a prohibition on the killing of mother bears with cubs, which would align Vermont with 80% of other states and Canadian provinces that allow hunting. At the May board meeting, they were completely silent on the issue. So I thank the board members who raised the question as to why the prohibition wasn't on their May recommendations. And I ask the board to support this prohibition and send a clear message to hunters. Additionally, the department initially recommended extending the bear season by a week through the end of November, and they provided justification for that. Then, at the May board meeting, in an apparent attempt to appease the bear baiting petitioner, they arbitrarily extended the season through mid-December. There was neither science-based rationale nor data nor research to substantiate this change. They did not discuss the impacts on denning bears or how hounds might sniff out sleeping bears, which places hibernating bears, including sows with cubs, in danger of being mauled. In fact, they stated that very few bears would be killed during this time. So then what is the point? I ask the board to reject this proposal because it presents more dangers than solutions. Vermonters do not want hounds on the landscape any longer. Lastly, it is not illegal to kill a hibernating bear in Vermont. So is this the image we want to project? Thank you.
Lisa?
We have Vanessa Krantz.
Bruce looks like he's off mute, so he can go before me.
It's not.
Oh, we still can't hear you, Bruce. Okay, I'll go. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good evening. Thank you for your time and your service. My name is Vanessa Kranz and I live in Bethel, Vermont. I first want to thank the board for its decision not to create a bear baiting season. I appreciated the thoughtful discussion and consideration of public input along with the department's recommendations on that issue last month. I also want to state my support for a ban for killing mother black bears with cubs. Many Vermonters have expressed support for this proposal, and similar protections exist in many other states. And while, I know concerns have been raised about accidental violations, I think that those situations can be addressed through reasonable law enforcement discretion, as they are in many other wildlife-related cases. I simply see no legitimate reason to not have a prohibition like this. And finally, I want to urge the board not to extend the bear hunting season into December. Bears begin denning during this period, and Vermont currently has no prohibition on hunting bears in their dens. Instead, extending the season increases the risk that a denning bear could be pursued and killed, which I do not support. And if the board did decide to extend the season, I would want to see some sort of rule prohibiting killing denning bears. And I don't know the exact number, actually Barbara might know, but I know there are other states that do have prohibitions against killing denning bears as well. Thank you so much for your service and your consideration.
Thank you, Vanessa.
Is Devin Brennan.
Good evening. My name is Devin Brennan. I live in South Royalton. I have a Juris Doctor with a concentration in animal law and a Master of Animal Protection Policy, and I am a practicing attorney. I am commenting today to encourage the Fish and Wildlife Board to either initiate rulemaking proceedings or adopt the procedure to prohibit knowingly taking sows with cubs, because the rule helps maintain the best health of bears pursuant to 10 VSA Section 4082. Under 10 VSA Section 4082, the rules the board adopts shall be designed to maintain the best health of regulated species. Vermont's bears are precocial species, meaning the animals require a period of socialization and development to learn how to survive and thrive. Depriving cubs of mother socialization disadvantages the cubs. The requested rule recognizes bears' precociality and provides a mechanism for enforcing against those who knowingly kill sows with cubs and thereby adversely affect cubs' development. Because the requested rule helps protect cubs' best health, I request that the Fish and Wildlife Board initiate rulemaking or adopt the procedures to prohibit knowingly taking sows with cubs. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Mary Richards.
Are you unmuted?
I am unmuted. Says I'm unmuted here. Let me hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Nope.
Yes, we can hear you.
Oh, you can? Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry. I'm driving and I apologize. I have another meeting that starts at 6. I live in Cornwall, Vermont, and this is my 3rd year in Vermont. I moved here from Alaska. In Alaska, we only allow the killing of mother bears if they're around another species that is, in decline, like a caribou, right? Here, that's not the case. And so I really want to speak out against the killing of mother bears. In fact, I don't really understand Vermont so far yet. I know I'm a newbie, but I really would like to see us as a state moving towards more coexistence with our lovely animals and less just killing for no reason. I do support hunting. I support subsistence hunting particularly, but this just doesn't seem reasonable in any way, shape, or form. And it just seems cruel and quite inhumane. The other thing is I don't support extending ending the season either. There's no report.
Lost you.
And
Probably drove out of service. We'll move.
Can you tell me if you can hear me now, anyone?
We can hear you, Bruce. Go ahead.
Oh, yes. May I speak? Shall I go ahead?
Yes,
I don't
go
want
ahead. Go
Okay,
ahead.
thank you. Yes, I also want to add my voice to opposing the killing of mother bears with cubs. I find it incredibly unethical. It's very un-Vermont-like to me too. I've lived here for 25 years, so I guess I'm not an official Vermonter yet, but I feel like it. I just think it's a terrible practice. It's obvious that this doesn't happen in 80% of the states where bear hunting is allowed. And there's no reason at all for us to be doing this here in Vermont. I could repeat the same arguments that you've been hearing. I think you know it, that cubs are destined to die if their mother is shot and killed through predation, through starvation. It's just wrong. So I oppose that, and I can't believe that we're having this discussion again. I thought this had been resolved in our last meeting that I attended, which was, I think, about a month ago. So that's the first point I'd like to make. Second is I also do oppose tagging of two bears, period. And finally, I also oppose the idea that we should extend the hunting season. Right now, I just feel that that's going to put denning animals in danger. Clearly, that they're in their most vulnerable state. I just learned in the process of coming to this meeting that Vermont does not even have a law protecting denning bears. So that is imperative. And if it's your responsibility, then I would appreciate it if you would take that on and do that. So we have that law. And I therefore do not want to extend the hunting season because I feel it does put those bears at some risk. They need the time to prepare to go into their dens. They need the time to relax, if you will, and settle so that they can den successfully. So thank you. That's all I have to say about that. I appreciate your allowing me to speak.
You, Bruce.
Is Jordan Schroeder.
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Good evening. My name is Jordan Schroeder. I'm from Bristol, Vermont. I'm currently at my family's camp in North Hero, Vermont. I'm online tonight to talk about a comment a board member made during the last board meeting. But first, I'd like to start somewhere else. This board, as can any other board, can be compared to a jury. A jury is a group of non-biased individuals brought together to decide if a person is guilty or not, which they're given evidence to make their decision. In the board's case, if a proposal is backed by scientific evidence and research. If a board member makes an insult towards someone during the public comment time, this board member should be removed from their position. Why, you may ask? Well, during the past board meeting, 24 minutes on the dot into the recording, board member David Dean had a hot mic and was heard saying, quote unquote, smartass, while my father, Fred Schroeder, was speaking about the most recent panfish regulations changes. Mr. Dean's actions are unacceptable. By making this remark, it tells us that Mr. Dean has a bias against my father's beliefs. If a proposal was brought forward to change these regulations back, Mr. Dean would vote against them after hearing this comment. Secondly, I recently talked to the owner of Lake Champlain Fish Company run out of Rouse's Point, New York, who stated her business was struggling due to the ban of the sale of crappie. It is important to know that small businesses such as these are struggling, quoted by the owner, Rose Jeffries. I understand this is not a small business board of Vermont. However, decisions on this board were made with no data on the size of crappie in Vermont. This term, no data, was used by biologist Judd Kratzer while being questioned by board member Robert Patterson of Addison County last year. That's all I have. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Is Bob Galvin.
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Bob.
Beautiful. All right. My name is Bob Galvin. I live in Bolton. I'm the chair of the Bolton Conservation Commission and the volunteer coordinator for the Vermont chapter of the Sierra Club, but I will be speaking in my personal capacity tonight. I would like to echo the sentiments of Andy Phelan and many other speakers in supporting a ban on the killing of mother bears with cubs for many, many reasons that have already been expounded upon tonight. And I also would like to request that if the increased bear tag numbers do not sufficiently reduce the number of bear human conflicts or sufficiently reduce the bear population to a number that is supported by the department, that additional methodologies and additional options for bear coexistence be considered by the board. Thank you very much, and I will relinquish the rest of my time.
Bob.
Is Dr. Madeline Moda.
Hi, my name is Madeline Motter. I'm a property owner here in Lamoille County. I just want to make a statement about when a mother, I want to provide a different perspective. When a mother bear is shot and killed by a hunter, 3 lives are ended, and the community where this happens experiences trauma. What happened in Stowe was trauma for the community, for all of Vermonters, and as well as visitors to our state. For weeks, questions and discussion occurred in the public arena on such questions to did they arrest the guy, the hunter, and did they charge him? And where are the orphans now? Are they still alive? And then invitations to join in a hunting or a finding party of the cubs before they die. And then finally, the terrible realization came that the hunter who shot the mother bear did nothing unlawful. By not making the killing of mother bears unlawful, you are making it lawful and creating great trauma for the Vermont communities that bear witness to these events. So I ask you to outlaw this practice, of killing mother bears. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Cameron.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. So my name is Kristen Cameron. I've lived in Burlington, Vermont for over 20 years. I support a rule to prohibit killing mother bears with cubs in sight. Dennis, Barbara, Vanessa, and others have already made good points, so I won't repeat them. And I'll just say ditto and ask the department to support this position and the board to support this petition. I also oppose extending the bear hunting season to mid-December and oppose allowing a second bear tag for many of the reasons stated. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. Anybody else online that wish to speak?
Jonas Schroeder.
Sounds like, well, yep, can you hear me?
We can.
All right, great. I'm Jonas Schroeder, brother of Jordan Schroeder, sitting alongside him right now. Long-term hunter and plan to hunt for the rest of my life, as long as it's legal in the sad world that we live in. I've learned that hunting is all about compromise, and it sounds like a compromise that we can make, and I never really considered people shooting the mother while there's cubs around. Sadly, it did happen. But what I would like to compromise, and I agree with that same point as people have made, it's unethical, as I wouldn't do it myself. But with that compromise, I think we should extend the season. And it sounds like there's the concern of bears and dens. Well, first, I'd like for us to know if a hound can sniff out a bear in a den. If they can, I believe, yeah, they shouldn't be disturbed. If they can't, let it be allowed. Secondly, either way, that season should be extended and people should be able to hunt them without hounds. It's a compromise. Enforcing those blanket rules that can't be enforced out in the woods for 99% of the hunters and still rely on ethical practices. But if you want to ask for blanket rules, relying on people not to shoot the mother or the sow, then we should also enforce the blanket rule where people can still hunt, but not shoot them in dens. Thank you for your time.
You, Jonas.
Karen C.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Just a couple of quick points. First of all, Bruce, I'm glad you found your mute button because I completely agree with you 100%. I am a resident of Hyde Park. I have been here also 25 years, and I'm not sure why some of these issues are even on the table. Specifically, the killing of a mother bear. I don't know anywhere where it's okay to kill a mother of anything. And thank you, Dr. Mata, for bringing up the issue of the trauma and how it affects those cubs and how they're either going to die or they will have to find their way on their own without any guidance. And you can look at a case where there has been a lot of poaching with elephants and how the adolescent elephants, without having a parent around to raise them, have become increasingly aggressive, which is completely not their nature. So I thank you all for being here and allowing me to speak. Thank you.
You, Karen.
AB.
Yes, Elisa Burnett here, Lamoille County. I was a neighbor of the area in Stowe where the mother bear was killed. And since then saw the cubs going rogue and nobody really knows what happened to them. But I wanted to just emphasize for the board, I thank you for your time. Longtime hunting family, longtime supporter of ethical hunting. But I do want to just point out, as someone else said, that keeping these outdated, archaic rules of killing mother bears with cubs, allowing bears to be hunted in their dens, gives hunting a terrible name. And as we all know, we don't want to do that. So for the good of hunting, I would ask you to please vote against those. Thank you.
Good.
Excuse my pronunciation, but Maya Balasa.
Maya, can you hear us? We cannot hear you. On.
Don't hands raised. If you'd like to make public comment, but don't know how to raise your hand, please unmute and introduce yourself and the town.
Y'all hear that? Anybody else wish to speak? Just either unmute or raise your hand.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can now.
Okay, my name is Maya Balasa. I'm from Burlington, and I just wanted to share that I do not support the extension of the bear hunting season. I do not support the allowance of multiple bear kills by one hunter, and I do support the prohibition of intentional killing of mother bears with cubs in sight. Where there are areas that there are more interactions with bears and people, I think a better solution might be education to people about how to care for their food and also habitat restoration so that bears don't have to come into areas where humans are. I just wanted to say that. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you for your deliberation.
You, Maya. Last call for anybody online wish to speak. David?
My name's Dave. Yeah. May I speak?
Yes.
My name's David Kelly. I live in Greensboro, Vermont. I'm a fifth generation Vermonter. I grew up in Vermont. I spent 6 or 7 years living in Montana, mostly because the fishing is better there. I've hunted most of my life. I've hunted for bears. I think that this is the proposal to ban and make illegal the killing of mothers with cubs is essentially a no-brainer. Being able to hunt bears in their dens, likewise, is something that should clearly be banned. And I agree with those people who pointed out that allowing this kind of behavior really does damage to the hunting community itself. I would certainly echo Andy Phelan's comments at the beginning of this discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Anybody else online? All right, we'll move on. Next up is a petition from Andrew Phelan. The taking of sourwood cubs. So you got 10 minutes, Andy, so we can field questions afterwards.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you again. Just so you know, you don't just hear from me when the bear issues are up. I've worked with Jacqueline Camo before. I've worked with Bob Acabo, who is the U.S. Department of Agriculture contract manager, essentially, for the contract with Vermont that deals with animal interactions and particularly bear interactions with people. I work on the Mad River Valley Bear Initiative, which is a volunteer organization. I was just to educate people on how not to attract bears to your property. Honeybees, everything. We had a bear fair with electrification examples. We do a lot of things in the Mad River Valley, the 5 or 6 towns that make up that valley. So I'm not just here whenever this issue comes up. But we now have 6 new members because 2 seats are still vacant. We have Beth, we have Heather, we have John, we have Ryan, I think, Jonathan and Kevin. I don't know everybody yet, but we have new people who did not hear me last time. And I hope I'm speaking loud enough for the folks to hear. I cannot cover my 16-page petition or all the other things I said in 10 minutes. I'm not going to try, but I encourage you to read them if you haven't been able to read them. And I even created a Monarch Notes, a short distillation of those, a 2-pager that I sent to you all, and I've stopped sending you things, but you have the materials that you need. You have the information that you need from me, from the science that I learned from your own bear department to make the decision, and I encourage you to do that. What I'd like to spend my 10 minutes on is addressing the concerns, the complaints that I've heard about what might happen if you do this. And I've grouped them into different categories. And I'll give you my answers to those. There will be more answers, but I'll give you what I think are the best answers to those. And I'm open to further question or grilling on them. One is, or a set of them are, we do not want just a feel-good change that does not accomplish anything. I grouped that with the notion that enforcement would be too difficult. How do you determine intent? How do you enforce it? And we don't want to punish hunters for mistakes. I think Mike made a very good point on that, where he had the bow, he was about to shoot, he waited, he was thankful that he didn't. I think the answer to that is we want the hunters to take the right shot. It's not just see something, bang, and you do it. You need to take the right shot. Even the department's own regulations on how to shoot a bear are telling you to be careful and take time, because you have to place the shot a lot more carefully than you do for deer. You need to take the right shot. It's not 3 seconds. It takes more time for your privilege and your right and your tag to shoot a deer. But perhaps more importantly to these concerns raised about it, 37 of 44 states and provinces with bears and bear hunting have made it illegal. I don't know anything more than they know, but 37 of 44, 84% of them. I think that's your best answer for some of these questions. But like those 37, the one that your department proposed is not for mistakes. Mistakes are going to happen. I was a prosecutor for 7 years at the Justice Department and the U.S. Attorney's Office. I dealt with criminal cases day in and day out. I dealt with officers day in and day out. They had to make the call. And I helped them with that call on whether there's probable cause to pursue a case or not. And if there wasn't, there wasn't. We were not prosecuting people for mistakes. We were prosecuting people for intentional crimes. The man in Stowe, the man in the Mad River, snubbed their noses at you and your cautions, recommendations to not shoot a bear with cubs. They knew these bears had cubs and they shot them anyway. And I will get into the statistics that Ms. Comeau compiled in the February report that you have to show you what that means in real numbers. I'll get to that a little bit later. Won't this create a slippery slope? Other animals also get work. What about them? I again turn to the 37 to 40 states. None of them have had a problem with any kind of a slippery slope. I also would suggest that bears are very different. Bears are born in February, about the size of a chipmunk. They come out with their mothers and they need to be fed. They need to learn. They need to know what to eat, what they can't. They're omnivores. 90% of what they eat are bugs and nuts and plants. They need to learn what to do. By the time hunting season comes along, they are only 7 to 9 months old. They need the mother for hyperphagia, to get into the winter, to survive hibernation, for the warmth that she provides. So when they're losing 40% of their body weight over the winter, she's there to keep them warm so that they survive hibernation. And she's there when they come out of hibernation, now a year old, famished, 40% loss of body weight, and she has to go, she's got to bulk up so that she can feed them before they are sent off. Well, she's ready to go into estrus again for that year. Biology for bears is different. It takes longer. They're toddlers in the first hunting season. They are released. They go out on their own when they grow to be a year old. Another potential complaint. We need to control bear numbers. Won't they jump if we adopt this rule? First of all, Ms. Comeau stated in October 2023 at the board meeting that there is no correlation that they are aware of that this would increase numbers. But perhaps more importantly, are we saying that deliberately killing mother bears so the cubs will die is a wildlife management practice that we want? I think Mr. Batchelder said at the last meeting that is not a proper management technique. So we shouldn't allow it to happen. Now here's where we have the facts, and I think what Ms. Comeau did in her report is very important. I want to get into one further fact that I found. But here's this. There's no need for a rule because there's no proof of a widespread problem. Education is enough. This board unanimously rejected my petition last year in terms of a rule change. This board unanimously last time said, but we'll do education. 3 hunting seasons later, your professionals came to you and said, we tried education, it's not working. We need the rule change. So here's where I would like to, and Stowe is a bad example. I mean, a terrible example of that happening. But here's where I want to get into some of the facts. Last year, 2025, there were 12,500 bear tags, I think a little bit higher. In Ms. Comeau, she reports that there was a recent survey of bear hunters. I'm not even talking about the 80,000 tags for opportunistic killing, where I think those hunters know even less about bears than bear hunters do. Let's take the 1% of 12,500. 1% would kill a sow with cubs. 1% of 12,500 bear tags is 125 hunters. 125. Her next stat was that 2% of hunters said they were unsure whether they would kill a mother bear with cubs. That's another 250 hunters. Now, if you're unsure and the recommendation says, don't do it, don't do it, don't do it, but the law says do it, what do you think is going to happen in a lot of those cases? They're going to take the shot. 12% said they never or only occasionally assess bears in a group before shooting, meaning they're not taking time for the number one indication of a sow bear with cubs. By the time they get to the fall, this is in my reports, Mr. Sawsville will support this, Ms. Comeau will support this, all the biology does. Come fall, bear cubs are traveling with mom. They might not be right on her heels, but they are with mom. They're no longer in the babysitting tree. They're traveling with her. So if 12% don't even make the assessment of whether bears are in a group, that's another 1,500 of your 12,500 bear hunters. Another statistic she gave, 13% of the bear hunters were unaware of the department's recommendations against killing sows with cubs. 1,625 out of 12,500 hunters were unaware of a recommendation that you have had, not just since me in 2023, it was already in the regs before 2023. It's been in, I don't know, for a decade. And 13% of bear hunters don't know to look. And here's a statistic. I was troubled because it seemed to drop off the radar at the last meeting. I submitted a public records request and I got a draft of the bear rule recommendation dated January. You all got the one in February. I got one redlined in January with this statistic, and I'm going to quote it. 17% of bear hunters will typically harvest a bear that is with other bears. Let me say that again. 17% of bear hunters will typically harvest a bear that is with other bears. The number one indication of a mother with cubs is that very fact, a bear with other bears in the fall. 12,500 bear tags, 17%. Do you know how many hunters that is? I don't know it off the top of my head. I have to read my calculation. 2,125 of your 12,000 hunters will typically harvest a bear in a group. The number one indication that it has cubs. And how often do we get my neighbor with a security camera that catches a bear eating under an apple tree with her cubs, then moving off, and then a hunter coming in, shooting it and dragging its body away? How often does that happen? How often do you have a condo association where the bear has been coming through in Stowe for over a month with her cubs, and the hunter who worked in that condo association brings his gun to work shortly after the start of the hunting season and shoots her? That person, that hunter needs that rule. And so do the people of Vermont whose wildlife this is as much as it is the hunters.
Wrap it up.
Hunters have a right to take a bear, but the right bears. And it has to be the right bears in the time has come. And to wrap up, I know from my public records request that the bear department, I call it the bear department, that's not an official name, that Ms. Camo, Mr. Salisbury, maybe not even Mr. Austin, pulled that recommendation before the May meeting. I know for a fact. What I am suggesting here is, board members, you each are the leaders of this organization. If you have a further question, if you want to know something further, you want to bounce something that is said off of someone who doesn't have a vested interest or who is not concerned, and this is no disparagement of the staff. From what I said, it certainly shouldn't be a disparagement of it. Ask me and allow me to speak or respond however you want it done, either in writing or in front of you. Thank you, Mr. Noble. Any questions?
Questions for Andy or comments?
I'm around. Thank you.
Thank you, Andy.
Just because one question, because I've heard talked about several people this proposal. I didn't see this in your petition. Are you proposing any specific language? Because I have heard intentionally, I've heard knowingly. Is there? I haven't seen any specific language for us to consider, because the intentional knowingly is a big part, because going to what you said earlier, you were a prosecutor. I no doubt you exercise discretion, but you brought the Justice Department today. They don't operate. You can argue that they don't. Yeah, they don't. There's not much discretion going on.
That's a very important question, and it's one that's also important for this reason. Look at the Mad River Valley hunter. Look at the Stowe hunter. Mad River Valley hunter, the cubs were with the sow at her side. The Stowe person, I don't know for sure whether the cubs were right there with her at that time. There were pictures of it shortly after, moments after the gunshot. There were bears up a tree because that's where they fled. But were they with her when he shot her? But he knew this bear had cubs. Everybody in that condo association knew. So there's a little squiggle. To answer your question about whether I have specific language, I don't purport to be better than the 37 jurisdictions that have this. And I believe that there is a compilation of the exact language in those. Many of them do it with, if a bear's in the group, don't shoot, period. That makes it easy. You're not looking for proof of lactation. My God. I mean, there's some I saw where the shape of the female's head is a bit more. Now that's unreasonable. But there is a lot of language, and I wouldn't say use what I suggest because I don't know yet, but we have copies. We have a table that has the different language that is used by the states that have it, that I'm sure the department can work with.
Some of those states have it also allow baiting. So
True.
37 is not the numbers I'm struggling with, that percentages can be skewed because there's a certain percentage that bans this, but also allows baiting, because then that allows more time. And I'm not trying to argue for baiting, I bring it back up, but just that number is, so you have to look at the whole thing versus.
Many, John, don't allow the killing of cubs, which they call anything 75 pounds or below. Some of them have 100 pounds or below. It varies.
I went through them all.
The other thing about baiting, just to know that you made the right decision and you made a careful decision and it was based on the science. I was here, I know. When you bait, other bears come. So your bears in a group, there may be 2 boars there. It gets much more complicated, but let's not resurrect that. But there is language in statutes that is already there that has been used effectively. I was in touch with Oregon. They have some very good language, but you may have to think of the cub size or just bears in the group, because that's the #1 indicator. If you see bears in a group, you don't shoot until you're sure, and you really shouldn't shoot. In some states, they just don't shoot. Okay. Anyone else? Please ask if you have other questions. You're the board. I appreciate your time.
You, Andy.
Thank you.
That's completely up to you. So we do have dinner, and but we put Jackie up on the agenda. Jackie. Okay. Great. Yeah, please. Yeah, I'll turn it over to John to introduce Jackie. Neil's got his hand up. You may have a question.
Oh, Neil, you got a question?
Yeah, I think a comment. And hearing all of this and reading through all of those states that have rules or regulations against it, I think about the bear in Stowe and the bear in the Mad River Valley. If we did have some kind of rule, and I don't know the right language, that may have deterred those hunters from doing that. That's all I have to say, and I'll leave it at that.
Thank you, Neil. John?
Well, good evening, everybody. Pleasure to see you all. What I want to do is just give a little context for what the department would like to present to you tonight. It's basically a rehash of where we started the conversation May meeting. So proposed changes to the bear hunting regulations. And then we'll have Jackie come up. Please. Sure. Thanks for asking that. After I give a little bit of context where the board left off at the last meeting and what we would like to talk about in terms of proposed rule changes with you tonight, Jackie will get up and give a brief recap of the department's reasoning behind these proposed changes. And then Hannah Smith will walk us through the rule with the proposed changes, and then the board can deliberate on what we shared with you as you did last time. To that point, I want to thank all of you sincerely for what I thought was very thoughtful and frankly inspiring conversation and deliberation at the last meeting around some very complicated, emotionally charged topics with a lot of strong opinions being expressed amidst all of that. So thank you for that. To me, this is the best of wildlife conservation democracy in action. Sometimes it's a messy process, but it's a good process, and I was inspired by your discussion. So thank you for that. Also, to the extent that you see opportunities for the department to provide you with support in a way that is different from how we've been approaching things, please don't hesitate to offer your views and opinions on that. I think it's safe to speak for everybody that we're open to that. So please don't hesitate. Our job is to support you, to provide you with objective, science-based technical support to inform good decision-making. And your job is to ask critical questions, think carefully about that information, and use good judgment, make good decisions. And, with topics like this, sometimes the process is complicated, but thank you for walking through all of this with us. These are not easy topics. And also, to the extent the board wants to take up the issue of a restriction on the hunting of female bears with cubs, some of you had asked the department for additional information and background on what other states and Canadian provinces do in terms of regulations. In addition to what extent are they effective at enforcing those regulations? We have collected that information for you. And if you wish, we're prepared to share that with you this evening. Chris Saunders, who's our social science expert, can walk you through the regulations, and then Colonel Stedman can share with you some of his perspective that he's learned from his counterparts in other states. One last point of clarification. There clearly has been some confusion about the department's recommendations that we shared with you back in the May meeting. When Jackie shared with you in February the preliminary overview of what we had in mind to propose for bear regulation changes, we had a list. We had two lists. One list was what we were considering moving forward with. And then there was another list that had other considerations. In that list of other considerations was included restricting the harvest of female bears with cubs. At that time, we were not proposing with any certainty that we were planning to come to you with that as a proposed recommendation. And we've talked with you before about some of our reservations around that, and we can do that again tonight. But Commissioner said it all very well last time. It's something that has been pressing and on our mind for a long time. And we wanted you to know that we continue to deliberate internally on both the social and ecological considerations around all of that, as well as the enforcement considerations, which are not insignificant. So in any event, if the board wants to talk about that tonight, we are prepared to support that conversation. So where you left off at the end of the last meeting, you began by addressing several petitions, two of which dealt with proposed changes to the bear hunting regulations. You made some decisions. One, you decided to deny the petition to develop a baiting season for bears. So we're no longer talking about that tonight. And then there were two other proposed rule changes in the petitions. One was to establish a second bear tag, and the other was to extend the bear season into the month of December. I believe it was December 15th. You voted to move forward with a conversation about those proposals in the context of rulemaking. That's how you settled the petitions. Then the department walked you through our proposed rule changes, which included establishing a second bear tag in wildlife management units that would be identified on an annual basis with recommendations from the department to the board. Some years it could be all WMUs, some years it could be few WMUs, but they would be based on our assessment of the bear population, all of the various human conflict dynamics that we're aware of, and that would inform our recommendation to you. Second bear tag by WMU. The other proposed change that we recommended to you was extending the season. We've talked about the reasoning behind this, and initially we were thinking about ending the extended season at the end of the regular rifle season for deer in November, which effectively would add a week to the season. But what we're trying to do is establish tools for the department to address what the challenge is right now, which is a bear population that has grown way beyond what our social carrying capacity is. And we need to find ways of stabilizing and in some areas reducing the bear population. Even if extending it into December is not going to result in a substantial increase in bear harvest, and we can talk about all of the details around this when Jackie gives her presentation. this point, and from our standpoint, every little bit helps. So we're simply looking to establish more opportunities for us to deal with the size of the bear population as it exists now. I guess that was the lion's share of what we had proposed for you. So I think what I'll do now, I'll turn it over to Jackie. Oh, and then we of course had the conversation about the restriction on the harvest of sows with cubs, which I greatly appreciate. We can revisit that as well. Our proposal, it's largely the same as what we shared with you the last time. There are some logistical considerations about extending the season and issuing 2 bear tags that Hannah will also walk you through when we go through the rule. But in essence, what we're looking at doing is combining the early bear season with the late bear season into one bear season, beginning September 1st, extending through the end of all regulated deer seasons, which does bring you into December. And then allowing for a second tag by W. So we can talk, if you wish, we can talk about the logistics of tags and all of that. That's something that we'll figure out to the extent that you decide to approve moving forward with some of these rule changes. We'll work on dealing with the logistics of tags and such at that time. Any questions? Thank you. Jackie?
John.
Just a couple slides that you've all seen before, just again, like John said, we're just gonna do the recommendations that we've kind of already brought before you. Just a reminder, as John mentioned, right, we started this process with this whole list of considerations that our team kind of weighed the pros and cons of, which again, we've already discussed in multiple other meetings. Ultimately landing on 2 primary recommendations, extending the late bear season. And there's been discussions on how far we would extend that. But kind of the last iteration we've discussed this extending it through the last day of regulated deer seasons, ideally keeping it tied with those deer seasons instead of setting kind of an arbitrary date at this point, so that there's kind of some uniform consistency across time for that. We talked about allowing a second bear to be harvested by WMU. It would require the purchase of an additional bear tag. And in discussions about the logistics of how to do that and how to keep it not confusing because of the early bear season and the late bear season, we have been discussing the idea of combining the early season and late season into just one continuous season, but still requiring the purchase of a bear tag for that initial season, and then the ability to purchase a second bear tag to try to kind of eliminate that confusion. And some of the background behind that, right? The early season was created so that we could start to track who wanted to actively participate in bear hunting in the state. But we also wanted to maintain that opportunity during the regular deer season for hunters to opportunistically take a bear. But we're realizing now we still really need that ability to track who wants to participate in bear hunting. We need to be able to track how that changes over time so that we can kind of interpret changes in our harvest over time and how that might be related to the population versus how that might be related to participation in bear hunting. So this was kind of our strategy to try to simplify things, but it would be a bit of a change.
So for clarification, get rid of the early late bear season and have one bear season. But then you mentioned about a bear tag for the you said for the early season.
Well, not for the early season, but for that contiguous one bear season. So, because right now, right, like you have to buy the early bear season tag, but just your general hunting license gives you that opportunity to take a bear during the late season. And now we would be saying you have to buy that $5 bear tag to take a bear, no matter when.
And it's good for the whole duration.
Be good from September 1 through the last day of the deer season.
You buy the second tag immediately also.
Yeah, that would be an option. Yep.
Thank you.
I think it's a good idea that you do it that way, for sure. You still can keep track of their, when people buy them early enough anyway, so you'll still know who's buying them.
You clarify, I think I know the answer, but bear dog season ends just before deer season, right?
So that, and again, the commissioner might be able to speak to that, but right there's a date set on permits that are issued.
So thank you. And Hannah, you can feel free to correct me here. So when someone receives a bear hound permit, that permit is outside of the statutory privilege that someone gets when they get a bear tag, right? If you want a bear hound permit, you have to apply. The commissioner of the day is able to grant that permit. On that permit, we have purview over certain things, and one of those things is the date. 6.1 in the rule that Hannah's going to go over later clarifies that the commissioner can set that date, but to this moment here, there's simply commissioner's authority to set that date, and that's what regulates when hound hunters have to stop hunting. Currently, as we sit here today, that will end on 11/22, so November 22nd of this year, and I can get into the nitty gritty later, but that is our intent. As I sit here as the commissioner, our intent is to end that on a similar day. It's a Sunday. There happens to be 5 Sundays in November this year, strangely, because November 1st is a Sunday. Normal years, it will be, it'll be the 9th, or it'll be the 15th, or it'll be the 20th. And that is our goal, right? I know that there are probably some of you that'll want to have a discussion around on language there, and that's certainly within your purview on exactly how we land. But Hannah, anything on that clarifying? Okay. Yeah. So Commissioner of the Day has purview over that date.
But it does not go into the rifle season.
It currently does. It currently does. Yeah, for hounding. Anecdotally, I talked to the president of the Hound Association on a regular basis. His dogs are kenneled the week before rifle season, and it falls under a standard of reasonableness. They don't want their dogs in the woods when there are X amount, thousands of deer hunters out there. As you heard the president and representatives from the Hounds Association last week, they don't want conflict any more than any other hunter wants conflict. And many of them are deer hunters, right? And so they get a long training season, they get a long hounding season. And I think at that time, I'm not a hound hunter for bears, but I would imagine they want a deer hunt by that point. And so I know that is not a hard and fast answer, but we have made it to this point in history without this conflict existing during rifle season, right? We don't hear about this. We never hear conflicts with rifle hunters or archery hunters for that matter. But recognizing that there could be, and there are concerns around the extension of the season, we are, as we sit here today, it'll be 11/22 of this year. If you pass this rule, next year it'll end on a similar date, even though the gun season for bears will extend to December 15th or whatever date you choose.
Does the regulation give you guidance for how you set that date? Or is it just your discretion? The commissioner can choose the date.
So moving ahead, we have chosen to clarify that date in the draft that Hannah provided to you this afternoon. But I'll let her answer the exact language and the exact answer as to what gives the authority for the commissioner of the day to set that date on a permit right now. And if that's answerable, Hannah.
Yeah, it's answerable at a high level. The regulation doesn't speak specifically to the length of the bear hunting season. The requirement is that if you're hunting with hounds, you have a permit issued by the commissioner and that you comply with the conditions of that permit. So those permits have always had effective dates. Like your permit is good from X date until X date. And as the commissioner described, that is typically through the end of the rifle season. And the language that is in the rule that we'll walk through is what I have proposed right now is very simple language that simply reiterates the fact that hounders have to comply with all the conditions of their permit. If the board wants to have a discussion about whether there should be more detail in the rule, this is the opportunity to do that.
Jackie, can you also, I don't know the late season, early season. What are the dates on that? And what would open up in the middle?
So right now they run.
They do run.
Yeah, so the early season goes September 1st till the day before deer rifle. And then deer rifle season starts. And that's when the late season starts. So, yeah. And it really was, it was created that way. I think it went into effect 2013. So it's been around a little over 10 years now. And it really was just because before that, we did not have a way other than hound hunters to be able to track who was participating in bear hunting. And there's a big traditional culture around deer hunters taking bear opportunistically. And so we wanted to be able to retain that while also creating some more structure for us to track hunter participants.
There's a number of archery hunters. That's all they do is archery. I think if they have to spend another $5 for a bear tag, I just don't think they're gonna do it because they're not gonna be thinking about it. And there's gonna be opportunities where they could have harvested the bear and they can't. And that's gonna kind of go against what we're trying to do, which was increase the harvest.
I think if I understand correct though, like they already have to purchase that tag right now to be able to archery hunt during the early season. So yeah, I guess our feeling was like this expectation of buying this $5 tag has been out there long enough now that it's kind of become the norm. And so the idea of just creating that extension into the late season, our expectation is that it'll be palatable to the vast majority of the hunters.
Just think it might be easier if the archery hunting license was another $5 and included that, then there's no question. That'd be a lot simpler.
But what you're saying is you have to purchase a bear tag in order to harvest a bear during rifle season.
Yeah.
So you're gonna miss out on a lot of opportunistic kills by doing it that way. So that's kind of counterproductive to what the goal of the harvest is, to me.
And I can address that. The reality is, from our surveys, we know that most people who are interested in bear hunting are already bear hunting. And the vast majority of the harvest that's happening during the regular deer season, during the late bear season, is occurring by people who already have early bear privileges, whether it be an early bear tag or they have a permanent license that came with a early bear privilege. So at this point, we're not concerned that it would impact the kill at all during the late season.
We're also talking about potentially issuing a second bear tag. So it's kind of, the two of those don't really make a whole lot of sense to me because you will lose incidental harvest. Because I'm probably not going to purchase another $5 bear tag. I mean, I might, but some other people may not because it's not there. So it's kind of giving and taking with the potential sale of another bear tag.
Yeah, I mean, we did discuss that potential. Yeah, and I guess, if we're gonna try to simplify how we offer the second bear tag, for that kind of 2 bear bag limit component of this. Yeah, it just, that to us, that seemed like the most streamlined way to do it. Or yeah, there is the potential that we could see that. And again, if we saw like dramatic reductions in late season harvest, we could reassess and change it back, of course, too.
It's a bit cheap. I mean, for $5, pretty cheap. The other licenses are all $23. So I think most guys would buy that, or hunters would buy that $5 any bear license. That's right. If he was gonna pass on a $5, it's $5. So that's,
I just think that that'll be $27 and it's done. That's,
Cause when you go buy your hunting license now, you're getting a free bear tag with your hunting license if you don't choose to buy the early season. So when I buy my hunt license this year, if I don't $5 a bear tag, I have no bear tag, right?
There are a couple additional considerations there too, and maybe Chris, I'd ask you in just a second to speak about sort of the rebound effect of implicating or excuse me, yeah, I think that's the word, implementing, that's the word I'm looking for, implementing a new change, and then we get some sentiment that's contrarian and folks sort of fall back, and then over a couple of years they rebound. And maybe you could speak to some of that in a second, but I also, there's a consideration for the colonel as well, which we've discussed over the years, and that's someone forgetting, right? And they shoot a bear and they call and they say, I don't have the tag, right? And that is also a consideration that we haven't discussed on this particular issue, but with a little bit of experience in rearview mirror, we treat these instances with kid gloves and don't enforce against folks the first couple of years when there's a new rule. But Chris, would you be able to just speak to that rebound effect? Call it what it's supposed to be called.
I generally call it a hangover effect, but as Jason alluded to, when you make something new, it's especially something that's so ingrained, basically in the Northeast, whether it's New York, New Hampshire, Maine, the idea that residents get a bear tag with their deer license, there can be some pushback. But on the other hand, it can also add a little bit more excitement. So, we're kind of expecting with the new antlers deal rules this year that our lottery applications are going to be up because it's something new, it's something different. So we tend to think it's going to balance out. And the other thing I want to make clear is when I talk about incidental bear hunters, I'm including people who didn't buy an early bear tag. But when we did our bear hunter survey, we didn't just look at people who purchased an early bear tag. We also asked hunters who say they might incidental or could incidental bear hunt during the regular season, despite the fact they don't have an early bear tag. So we considered that. So we're not just thinking about the 12,000 people who buy an early bear tag. We looked at everybody. And when we look at that, that's when we find that there's a pretty clear divide. People either really interested in bear hunting or they're not. There's very little middle ground, which is why we're not overly concerned that the kill is going to go down very much during late season, just because suddenly you've got to buy a $5 license.
You have information on how many hunters are actually reading the hunting guide before a hunting season? I mean, if you do something like this with $5 bear tag required, how many of those hunters?
That's always a issue whenever we make a big sweeping change. And that's why the department, through outreach and education and the warden service, has done a lot of outreach this year and last year to prepare people for the upcoming changes in the deer seasons. And also, it's been about 5 years now, but we had a communication survey which found that the vast majority of our hunters and anglers are reading the regulation guide and even reading the articles, which was actually surprising because, my personal bias, I thought, well, they probably aren't treating this as a magazine, but they do. So we do know that a large percentage of our hunters and anglers are reading the regulations, but they're always, no matter what happens, whenever you have a big change, you've got to spend a lot of time out there in the field learning to people, especially if it's something that hasn't changed in a long time.
Something else we can add to that is we could treat it similar to the way we treat waterfowl hunters. There's questions right on your application when you're signing up for licenses. Are you going to waterfowl hunt? Yes. Then you have to go fill out the HIP, or you have to go buy the state duck stamp. So there's an option where if you plan to bear hunt this year, boom, you have to buy the tag and then have an explanation.
Neil, your hands up.
Muted.
You're
Neil,
muted.
Are you muted?
Thank you. I have a question on the hounding part of this. The bear hounding has always stopped the day before the regular deer season. Correct?
No.
And yeah, and now as I'm hearing this, you're allowing it to
No,
move.
it hasn't.
What?
That was not a regulation that hounding stopped deer season. It often did
was-
but
I can speak to it. Neil, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Yeah, it's Jason. By law, it ends the day bear season ends. And so that has fluctuated over the years. We've changed it from end of deer season to where it sits now, and I believe it's the second Sunday. But by law, it ends on the last day of bear season. What I was trying to clarify is that the commissioner of the day has purview over when that season ends, and we incorporate it onto the permit. As we stand here today, it's November 22nd, and we aim to end it on a similar date moving forward, even though the bear season will extend for someone just hunting with a bow or a gun.
Okay, but I guess I don't know too many bear hounders that would run bear during deer season. So anyway, doesn't make sense, but okay, never mind. Thank you for the clarification.
yes.
Back to the fee. Wrap my head around this. Sorry to belabor it, but I think the issue is, right, so many people were, all my life, you get a license, you get your buck tag, and you get your bear tag. And we started getting a $5 tag for early season, which I understood, but now I think our goal here was to increase the bear harvest, right? And so many people are used to getting that bear tag. Why don't we just buy your big game license, your hunting license, you get the buck tag, and you get the bear tag. Could increase the license fee by $1 or $2 or something, but it's like, why do we keep on putting these $5? We're gonna spend so much money on outreach and all this stuff. I mean, you're probably gonna step back. The tradition's always been get the buck tag. Why would we change that? Because if we're trying to encourage more people to bear hunt, take bear, I just think I'd pay the $5 personally, but it's like, a lot of people might not do it or not realize it. John?
Just to follow up on these questions, which I appreciate. I think as Jackie mentioned earlier, the purpose behind our proposal for a $5 bear tag is so that we actually know who we have out there on the landscape for bear hunters. Because if we just issue the bear tag the way we have in the past, we have no idea how many people are hunting bears. We thought $5, that's a modest fee, and it gives us information on what the population of bear hunters is on the landscape. But I hear you, the last thing we want to do is create a disincentive bear harvest. It's that you're correct, Richard, that would run counter to what we're trying to do.
add to that. One thing that we have found with other tags and permits that were needed to try to track how many people there, because all of that goes into the modeling people do besides the age of the bears, and sex ratios and things like that, is if you give away a free tag, everybody just signs up for it, and you have so much error in the number of hunters that are actually participating that you don't get a true measure of the hunting pressure that's out there. That's something that is considered when we're looking at allocations of harvest in the future. So
I was just again saying, what we need is we need more to be harvested, and we're never gonna over harvest. So I don't really, I don't see any issue with having everybody have a license or the tag that they can harvest a bear with, because we're not gonna over harvest. And it really, it's just so much simpler. If everybody have a bear tag, we don't need to know that information. No. Okay, yeah, I changed my mind. Change this change.
I mean, again, it would create a big blind spot for us if there were big changes in the harvest where we would not necessarily be able to say, well, is that because we're seeing a change in the population, or is that a change in hunter effort or hunter participation? And we're already a bit limited because of the late season as it is. Like, we're already kind of having to make guesstimates because we really can only kind of start to quantify the early season harvest. We really struggle with that late season harvest, but it's such a small component of the harvest that we're still getting the bulk of the info we need. So, I mean, this would streamline things. It would simplify things to just combine the seasons. But then the two options are, do we just lose any information we have about who's actually hunting bears and just give it to everybody for free? Or do we just keep this $5 tag to participate so that we're still able to it'll actually improve the information that we're getting on who actually is participating in bear hunting?
I think losing that data collection mechanism, especially during this change of bear rules, I think that would be a mistake.
One thing to flag for the board as well is obviously an option is to not change the status quo. So you would continue to have the early season tag, which allows the department to collect the information. And then you've got your tag for the late season for any opportunistic hunters, which, you know, that's what currently exists and has since 2013. So we're just talking now about, because there was confusion this early season, since early and late season run into each other.
Still say that right now, I would say there's a significant portion of your early season tags that are purchased as people that are primarily archery hunting. So your harvest there is also incidental. For a big chunk of that is also incidental. It's not someone going out and actively sitting on a cornfield waiting for bear to come by.
Yes and no. Yes and no.
Yeah, and
Yeah, I mean,
I
September, I mean, you're not archery hunting.
no, but I'm saying,
Right.
Personally, I have bought the early season tag. I don't bear hunt,
Right.
but I archery hunt.
A lot of people that do on the corn pieces still. And go to spots where apples are too, a lot, so.
That's just saying as an archery hunter.
Right,
I'm
right.
not,
I'm an archery hunter.
Right, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I'm saying that I purchased the tag. I'm not gonna go actively sit out there on a.
But with more bears, I think we're seeing more hunters early season too, corn, apples too. I think, yeah. I see it. Yeah. I think after spending thousands of dollars on gear, rifles and ammo, that'd be pretty cheap not to buy a $5 tag. Yeah. $5.
So can we have the discussion about the mother bear controversy, or is that later?
Yeah. Yeah, so procedurally, the board has as of last week or last meeting, you've decided to move forward with rulemaking. We were having a discussion about proposed changes to the rules that will continue into today's meeting. As I understand, the board wants to continue to have the discussion about regulating shooting sows with cubs as part of this conversation. And so I think like the next step, I can actually share the language with the board and we can go step by step through that and have those discussions. And again, including that conversation in response to both points brought up by the board and Mr. Phelan's petition, that discussion about regulating shootings. I don't know if we want to take a break for that or jump right into that.
I think it'd be a good time to break before we do that, but anything else for Jacqueline? While she's up here?
Well, I guess I'd like to know something about when bears hibernate.
Yeah, I mean, it's
Is it like with snow or with cold?
a huge spectrum. Food availability is the biggest driver. And, you know, we see anywhere from October, January, you know, and depending on the individual, depending on availability. Yeah, so it's a big spectrum. It changes from year to year. It depends on the bear, its sex, its age, its reproductive status, and that food availability. And so sometimes snow is part of it because if we've got a good beech nut or acorn crop, we get a foot of snow on top of it, it starts becoming energetically prohibitive to keep digging through the snow to find those acorns. So it's very variable.
Males and cubs are standing together?
Yep. Yeah, and typically what you see is, again, generally speaking, it's your pregnant females that go into their dens first. And then often it's males and subadults that are the last to go into the den. And so females with cubs are kind of somewhere in the middle.
Jackie, those pregnant females, when they go into the den, they don't give birth until they're in the winter, right?
Exactly, yeah. So they're not giving birth until January or February typically. Yep. And then the females that have cubs that are, you know, gonna be turning into yearlings during the winter, they are typically all denning in one location together.
Well, I have jumped bears out of dens in November and seen bear tracks, late muzzleloader. They vary when they den up.
We had a caller female that went into her den and, you know, we've seen it in October in some years, certain females into dens in October. So it's all over the spectrum.
So if hounding season continues into November, then I really don't know what's happening with bear hunting. So if a bear is denning, bear is already hibernating or denning, what happens with dogs that are hounding?
Well, again, typically, generally speaking, right, the dogs are cutting a track to pick up that scent. And so that animal typically has to still be moving around for the dogs to pick up the scent.
To Jackie's point, so we got this long window of time during which bears are going to decide to enter a den for various. And for as long as we've had hound hunting in this state, you've had some measure of overlap between that activity and bears in dens. So that's always been present. And I'm not aware that that's presented issues.
Not that I'm aware of.
Our dogs are not gonna go into a den, are they?
I think what Jackie was trying to explain is that the dogs are trained to the scent. The scent is usually left on the ground by a moving bear. I don't know,
Most houndsmen are driving roads or trails, or they're walking edges or cornfields. So they're not like
going out in the woods with their dogs looking for a bear in a den. They're striking from a road or from an active location of bear activity.
And one thing to also consider is if you look over the last 50 years, that hounding, 50 plus years that hounding has been occurring, our population has still been growing, so it has not been having a population effect at this point.
How many bears are the hounders taking, like on an average year?
130 something.
Small
Yeah.
percentage, 10% or 50% of it.
It's usually averages around that, yes. 12 to 17% of the overall harvest, somewhere in that range.
What was your question, Jeff?
How, what percentage of the bear kill, the bear harvest is by hounders?
Elders, okay.
In order to get their bear population into check, the hounders are gonna have to take more bears.
Yeah, I don't know if you're gonna move that needle too much, but on the still hunters.
Neil, you got a hand up?
Yeah, I do. The bears that you have collared, do they go back to the same den or do they choose different locations?
I have never seen a bear reuse the same den. Colleagues in other states occasionally have seen it, and they've even occasionally seen a different bear reuse another bear's den. But typically they're picking a new den each winter. And again, we've worked with both males and females of various ages, so that seems to be universal across all bears. David's got a question.
David,
How long is the scent of a bear viable on the ground for a hound? 1 hour, 1 day, 1 month?
I can't speak precisely to that, David. But I can say there's a lot of factors that influence the viability of the scent, right? So moisture and temperature, the type of substrate, all those things are factors. So, rain and snow will impact it. Yeah, there's a lot of different factors that can influence that. I've seen firsthand dogs making pretty weak strikes off of what tracks that look like they're probably a day old. But again, I can't speak to the nuance of all of that beyond what I just said.
Well, maybe if there's a hounder listening, they might provide the board some information. Thank you.
Yeah, just to follow up on Jeff's question, last year, your presentation said the annual harvest rate of hound hunting is around 13 to 15%. So it might be 150.
One more question. So the current end of the late season is when? And we're proposing to extend it by how long?
So it goes until
Monday of the regular deer season. The 9 days of the regular deer season that they can hunt. So it's usually mid-November.
Yeah, the late season is 9 days, but yeah, it's a different end date each year.
Okay. And so we're proposing to extend it by 2 weeks?
Is it now? About a month.
About a month?
Less than months. Yeah.
And I'm gonna go back to my question earlier about criteria for when the commissioner's discretion of ending the hounding season, like, hey, did you choose November 22nd? Like, what are some of the drivers that have been part of that decision? And is the end of November just typical cultural?
No, so that's the last day of bear season. So that's why we follow that date. And so understanding that this season would run into some overlaps, we have opted to pull the plug on the same day that we've been pulling the plug for 50 years. It might seem like a loss to the hound hunting community, and I'm willing to discuss that with them. But I don't personally see it as being a loss to them because it's nothing new, right? It's what we've been doing. And I feel the folks on the other end of the spectrum have not had an issue with the hound hunting season running well, at least an issue that's come to us running until that last day. So, and also the anecdotal evidence that there isn't much running going on is helpful, but the hard and fast end was always that day. And so ending it on that day, I feel like is a compromise, and that's the one we're proposing.
But you're, sorry, I
It's fine.
haven't scrutinized it. So the proposal is to continue to end the hounding season on the last day of the current late season bear and extend the season, but not the hounding season. And would that be a fixed date from now forward, or is that still at the discretion of the commissioner?
Well, the way we have it written, it's the discretion of the commissioner, which is a discussion point.
We could change that.
Yeah, we could.
My initial thoughts on that might be to tidy that up, but we can get into that when get into the bear rule, but I think there's room for some improvement there.
Thanks for that clarity.
And great questions.
And if I could just make one more point, I think we have talked about, I think back in February, but just the reminder of when we look at what our harvests look like over time. I mean, we see big swings in our late season harvest already because in certain years when food is, or like natural food availability is limited, we see dramatic reductions in that late season harvest, again, because bears are denning earlier in those years. So that's part of the consideration with going a little bit farther, is that bears available for harvest are going to already be dropping off every week you go later. So again, we'll see, with climate change, there are other factors that do keep some individuals on the landscape longer, but again, those are the other thoughts that kind of went behind or went into our decision-making around this.
David, you got your hand up?
I do. I would like to ask someone if they would create a fairly basic chart of season endings currently, season endings under the proposed rule. Because with the discussion, the way it swirls, I still don't know what the last day might be that someone could shoot a bear. So if that is not an onerous request, I think it might help the board's discussion.
Put that together.
Agreed to put that together, David. John Austin.
Thank you.
When we get a big cold snap, October 27th, pick up 2 feet of snow and it gets cold for 2 weeks and the bears are denning up. Then it warms up again. Do they typically stay in den or do they?
Depends on the bear. Some do, some don't.
They'll actually may even get up midwinter if it's a really sustained thaw, like a raccoon. I mean, not as easily as a raccoon, but they can get up. But yeah.
They will den, go out, find some food, come back and re-den.
Yeah.
You even see, some will go back to their original den site, and others do what we call like kind of ground nesting, where they'll sometimes, if they get disturbed or choose to leave, sometimes they just curl up under a different tree, new spot too.
They don't necessarily need cover.
Necessarily, no.
I think this is a good break time. I'll just say the quicker we eat, the sooner we get out of here.
Perfect, it's no taller than my head. Right in the middle, it's round. So this. So.
It's on the
People
side.
came, there was another guy from.
Yeah.
There you been in?
Everybody, we'll get started.
Really, really in the Adirondack.
Got a lot of bucks on
Yeah, we're out of the.
We will continue on with, I believe Hannah is up next.
Great, I will share the rule language. And David, are you guys back? Just want to make sure. So again, to set the scene here, the board is discussing proposed changes to the rule. And again, the red line changes in this Word document that we're looking at are those changes that the department has drafted. But if there are any other changes to the rule that the board wants to make during this process, this is your option. So this is your rule. And we went through this last time, but for the points Jackie made, we've made a few more tweaks. So I will go line by line again, just so we can have a full discussion about everything of interest. Some of these, this was just a technical correction. It said under twice there in the definition of subpermittee. This edit here, again, was a grammatical edit, means any animal. We've made this change regarding the name of the department a couple times. The statutory name of the department was changed. It was a while ago, but we are trying to consistency in our rules. Refer to this as the Department of Life. This edit in section 3.9, again, it said department registered dog tags. Everywhere else in the rule, it refers to department registration dog. Again, just for consistency. 312, this is a grammatical correction designated by the bear dog permit holder. 13, regulated dogs packs means the removal and replacement of one or more dogs, dog or dogs was repetitive. No other edits to the definitions. This is where the language, the highlighted section is what is different from last month when we were discussing this rule. And David, we did put together a brief table, but maybe just seeing the language will help to sort of clarify the current season. So the way that this is broken down currently is that we have an early and a late season, but they run concurrent. So the early season right now ends the day before the first day of the regular season, and the late season begins on the first day of the regular deer season. The only difference in the structure now is that you do need to buy a bear tag to take a bear during the early season. As Jackie mentioned, this change was implemented in 2013 in order for the department to collect information about the bear hunting population. And if I'm missing anything, feel free to jump in. But what at the last meeting, there was a little bit of discussion about whether this was a confusing distinction, since the bear season itself essentially runs from September 1st through the end of deer season or whenever the board decides to extend it. And so it's sort of this arbitrary early versus late season. So to eliminate that confusion, what this language right now would propose is that the bear season runs from September 1st through the last day of the regulated deer hunting season. So I'll take a step back there too, because during the last meeting, when the board was discussing extending the meeting, you voted to extend it through a date certain. It was December 15th. December 15th is currently the last day of archery season. The only reason that I have used the language last day of the regulated deer hunting season rather than December 15th is that if there's ever a revision to those seasons, my understanding is that the bear hunting season would still be tied to the end of the regulated deer hunting season. So then if for some reason archery season ends on a day that's not December 15th in the future, we wouldn't need to update this rule. The regulated hunting seasons would be tied together, making things easier from a law enforcement perspective. But that, again, that's your prerogative. If you want it to be a date, if you want it to be the December 15th date, we can use that. This would, for the time being, until the deer rule is updated again, it is for all intents and purposes, December 15th. This also, it eliminates the language that distinguishes between the early and late season, because the proposal would be one single season that extended from September 15th through September 1st through December 15th. This language here regarding non-resident bear dog permit holders, that is currently in the rule. So non-resident bear dog permit holders, their permits do not authorize use of hounds on the landscape until September 15th. So that's not a change. We're just making sure it's included in this language if you choose to get rid of the early versus late season distinction. Shooting hours are the same. Then the other change that's different from last time is this tags and bag limit. I've eliminated reference to the early bear season. So instead, to take a black bear during bear season, a person must, in addition to having a big game hunting license, possess a bear tag issued separately by the department. And this is the discussion we were having before the dinner break. Is that a requirement that the board wants to have? I struck the language talking about the late season, since there will be no late season. It will be one single season. This language here in section 5.3, this is the same as what you saw last month. So this is the authorization for the board to allow a second tag. So a person shall not harvest more than one black bear per calendar year, unless the board determines a second bear may be taken during the calendar year within specified WMUs based on recommendations of the department. To take a second bear, a person must purchase a second bear tag issued by the department. A second bear may be taken during the bear season, so again, early versus late distinction, and only within the WMUs specified by the. I'm going to pause there and we can talk through this language.
Yes.
I have a question. Is the department planning to issue annual recommendations on taking a second?
Currently.
Add annual recommendations?
Yes, so based on so it would be on the annual recommendations of the department.
What is the last sentence? 5.3, second bear tag may be taken during either the bear season.
I apologize. That was a typo on my end, in the copy that was printed. Because it previously said either early or late season. And in this, because there's no distinction, it just should say taken during the bear season.
So, Mr. Chairman,
Yeah, David.
so what we are, if this were approved, we would essentially be making the same kind of decision on bears that the board now makes on moose. That there are distinct differences between WMUs and that in fact, some have moose hunting, most do not. Is that a correct summary of what this is proposing?
What this is proposing is that you will still be allowed to have one bear annually if you purchase the tag. And if you so-
Anywhere, at
Anywhere.
any time
Yep.
within the season.
Correct. The second tag, if you purchase one, will be for a designated set of WMUs or potentially statewide, depending on the year's recommendation and what the board approved.
But a hunter would be able to use that second tag in any of the WMUs that have been identified as being open for a second bear. Wouldn't be restricted to a WMU.
Right, but the first tag is general bear hunting as we know it and love it now.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Questions on that segment of the recommendation? We can move on, Hannah? Or is there a?
There's an additional edit, and this is what we alluded to earlier in section 6.1. This valid department issued bear tag with that bear tags. That was just a grammatical edit from last time. The highlighted language, though, is intended just to reinforce the point that we were discussing earlier about the fact that hunting bears with dogs is a conditional activity. It requires that you get a permit from the department, and a permittee shall comply with all bear dog permit conditions, including the effective dates of the permit. So this has always been true, but if the effective dates of the permit in the past, they've always aligned with the end of the late bear season. If they don't align with the end of the bear season, because the bear season extends into December, then this language is just to reinforce the fact that you have to comply with the conditions of your permit. This is where I think prior to the break, there was some discussion about whether this should be more specific, or whether this provides the sort of sideboards that the board thinks are necessary and adequate.
So at the discretion of the current commissioner, right now. Well, a different commissioner might like to could extend the bear season or the hounding season right into December if he or she so desired, right? I think a more definite date that's not commissioner driven might be a better idea, but my initial thought on that.
Is there any reason why we don't terminate hounding the day before regular rifle? I think that would make sense in a lot of ways, since most people with dogs aren't doing it anyway. We just set that as a date, the day before rifle.
We need I think an end date. It's consistent in the rule book.
Yeah, also, yeah, I was gonna say published in the book, so people, everybody knows.
I would just point out, because I have spoken to the non-hunting president recently, that this would be a net loss to them as we sit here today. Not commensurate with practice, but on paper, it would be a loss for them. But
How?
I'm just stating.
How would it be a loss?
Because the current bear season as it stands runs 9 days into the regular rifle season for deer, and they could run during that time, even though they do not. On paper, it would be a loss of days for them.
If we change.
But,
If you
but
change-
not in practice.
Likely not in practice.
Affords them some protections the other way too. Not at the discretion of one person, it's set. Or,
Good point.
Can you say that again? I
I
can't.
said instead of right now, I don't see how it's a loss because it could go against them too, because right now it's up to the commissioner, depending who the commissioner is, right? Their season's at the mercy of the commissioner making a decision that's not saying Jason's doing that, it's just, this is the board looking at this rule, so I think, I can't speak for them, but not having that potentially arbitrary decision being made and relying on that, having it the state certain that conforms what we're told to practice, just, I don't necessarily see it as a loss for them, it's probably put them at ease. There's consistency in it.
All right, when we get into the real rulemaking, we can revisit this, so.
Well, this is,
And just a comment that we may in fact set a date certain in this setting or at this time. It doesn't mean that we couldn't change it down the road. Nothing we do binds future boards.
Get a vote, you gotta go through the rulemaking process versus or making a decision.
So. Got a couple ideas floated on when to. Number one, not make it a commissioner driven decision and select an end date that's consistent every year.
Yeah. Ask for some language.
yes, I think that I would propose, first day of the regular. Let's see.
Commissioner's point, if you wanted to stick with tradition, you could have the end date be whatever that Saturday or Sunday in November has been for the last 50 years. It's not the last day, or it's not the Friday before the beginning of regular deer rifle season. It's 9 days later, which is always a Sunday.
Wednesday. Sunday, got it, yeah. It used to be Wednesday, yeah.
That's how you would clarify it in the rule. You would identify the, whatever it is, the second or third Sunday in November. That
I don't. If it, in practice, it doesn't matter really. Why piss off some constituents? Like,
9 days in.
Same it is now.
Yep, 9 days in,
Make
we'll
it-
call it that.
That way. No loss, there's no gain, well, yeah, there's no loss.
Really don't, heard the deer hunt, most, rifle hunting, that's when the most hunters in the woods, right? Especially that first week. All wants to see.
Nobody sees them.
The only season, so why don't we just end it to, as Richard said, that, I was support Richard's proposal the day before rifle season. My opinion.
As long as the date certain, I don't have a problem with that. Either way would satisfy the date. the goal. But it would be cleaner because before rifle season, so there was not an opportunity for somebody to have their dogs out in the woods during rifle.
All of a sudden, but, you know, being brought up today, we haven't really got any feedback from do it.
But we will, with the first public hearing. There's something to advance these rules to the public hearing stage, so we can be modified at a later date. We gotta come up with something. I'm leaning toward keeping it the way it is right now.
Make a motion, we go with the 9 days.
Second that.
Right, so we have a motion on the floor to the end date for the hounding bear season. 9 days into whenever the regular rifle season starts. Did I word that correctly?
For an amendment to that, with it, the amendment, friendly amendment to have an end date certain? Actually setting that?
Change every year. It's going on.
Oh, okay.
The date would actually change every year.
Because
I see. So, okay, sorry.
season shifts.
It's gonna be the Sunday before Thanksgiving.
Yep, that's another way of wording it. Sunday, Thanksgiving season situation.
To the 9 days. So this year, since November 1st falls on a Sunday, that would only be, I believe that, would that be 9? It wouldn't be, it would be less than 9.
So 9 days from first day of deer season. Starts on the 13th.
About the third day every November.
Beginning of deer season.
Thanksgiving's always on a Thursday, and it's always the last Thursday of the deer season.
Either way.
Yeah, I mean,
So what was your amendment, Heather, was like, I did quite.
I think I can retract that. Yeah, yeah. I want to make sure we're still landing on a date that's clear and certain.
It is. Everybody looks at their season shifts every year and people keep track of that. Yes.
Sorry, I have through the second Sunday in November. That sounds like that's wrong. What are we, what are we, looking at?
9 days after the start of.
Okay. It's always the second Sunday of the regular rifle season.
9 days. Our discussion on, we got the motion we have on the floor right now.
Can you reread that for us?
Yes, the permittee shall comply with all bear dog permit conditions, including the effective dates of the permit. Bear dog permit shall authorize the hunting of bear with dogs through the second Sunday of the regular deer season.
Any further discussion? All right, I'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
Oh.
Guys have it, the motion passed.
And just to be clear, Mr. Chairman, this deals only with bear hounds in terms of the dates.
Yeah.
Thank you.
They're scrolling. The only other edit in the department's current proposal is in section 8.3. This first clause is just the correction of the title of the department. The language here is, the current language is duplicative. It states that the person who harvested the bear and the bear dog permit holder must both be present to legal harvest. That sentence that I struck states that if the bear dog permit holder harvested the bear, only he or she must be present when reporting the harvest, which is duplicative of the requirement in the previous sentence. So I've stricken it. Questions about that? Hearing none, there are two issues that I see as still warranting discussion from the board. There's still the question about eliminating early versus late season, and then the discussion about regulating. So I'll take us back up to this section here where we're looking at the seasons. And I guess also I would say to the chair's earlier point, the package of changes that we're looking at right now, these are the proposed changes. So what the board decides to put forward at this point will be subject to a public comment period. There will be meetings, you'll get feedback, and there will be opportunity to make further revisions before we submit a final proposal. So just something to keep in mind as we're working on this language.
When it shows there through the last day of the regulated deer hunting season, and then you have regular deer season. I know the difference, but is it semi-confusing to some people?
Well, that's a great question. So the way that I use that terminology because that's what we use in the deer rule. Regular season is the rifle season that's in November, and it's sort of like a term of art that's used in the rule.
Yeah.
Regulated deer hunting season refers to any season where it's legal to hunt deer. So I don't think it's confusing.
It's not to me, but
but if I would certainly take feedback. The idea is that right now the archery season is the longest regulated. It extends longer than any other season, but that technically is the end of the regulated deer hunting season. It's the last day of archery. And I think that if there is, we could make that very clear in the digest when these season dates are published.
I think you'll need to.
I wonder too, like, part of our discussion so far about merging late and early season together, there's some people that want to see people that have a tag and just in case they see a bear. And I got people that want to have that $5 fee so that we can keep track of who's hunting bear. And we kind of have that already with the early season and late season. People understand it. I feel like maybe we should just keep things the way they are. People can buy an early season tag. We can track the people that are interested in bear hunting doing that. Keep the late season, extend it the way we were talking. And it seems like both sides kind of get what they want.
Only problem I see with that is when we go to 2 tags, allow 2 bears, somebody shoots one during the early season, doesn't purchase a second tag, then they use that regular season tag. And they just 2.
But it would be written as the second bear tag would have to be purchased after you've harvested a bear, or can you carry 2? You can't carry 2 tags at one time.
Well, because under the current structure, the early season tag is really just an authorization to take a bear during that time period. You could buy them simultaneously for the same thing.
Only one of those tags is good.
If you have an early season tag, you could take. You could take 2 bear during the early season.
Right, but I mean, but the way it's gonna be this year, we're gonna buy our hunt license, we get a bear tag with our license. Then we gotta choose whether we wanna buy the early season tag. You can only harvest 1 bear. And even then, you would only be able to harvest 1 bear, right? Until you've bought the second designated tag.
So sure about that. For this year, yes.
Yeah.
You're only allowed one, but when it goes to 2 bears, if you're in a wildlife management area,
Right, but it's the designated tag that you gotta purchase after the fact.
Well, you would need to purchase it before you took the second bear.
Right, but I mean, you gotta shoot the first bear before you can buy the second bear tag.
I mean, there aren't any restrictions on, I mean, no, you could buy a second, do you want?
I would say,
Am I doing it?
it depends on how you set it up. You know, you can
Yeah.
set it up, where you could buy, right now, you can buy both buck tags. Or, you know, you get the other one for free, but you could also set it up with a rule that says you have to harvest a bear first before you buy a second tag. So it's at the discretion of the board.
Even that second buck tag, I see that being a little confusing, but.
Well, the second buck tag has conditions because you have to take,
So the bear tag would have to have a condition.
Harvest a bear first. That's what you want. Or you
Well,
can
I mean,
still
cause
buy
I
2
mean,
tags.
you're sitting in a cornfield. Now, boom, you got a ball sleeving. Or that one without any cubs, you know, I mean.
if you want to take a second, no matter how we do the seasons, if you want to take a second bear, you've got to buy a 2
you gotta
tag.
have a second tag.
Part of the reason behind suggesting that we combine the seasons and issue 1 tag initially was to avoid this confusion, because right now you're allowed 1 bear, but in theory, if you buy the early season tag, you have 2 tags. And so if we did not make this change and we left the rules as they are, you'd seemingly have 3 tags. You allow for a second bear, you buy your second bear tag, but you've already got 2 bear tags on your license if you bought the early season tag. But part of it is trying to minimize that confusion about the tags on the license.
basically we'd be going back to what it was 14, 15 years ago.
If you didn't buy the tag, we just got the bear.
Back then, now it's gonna cost you a few bucks.
So we kept it simple.
Season one, $5.
Yeah, $5, you get a bear tag
For the whole
whole
season.
season, and if you want to buy a second tag,
Get to it.
like archery, where I can buy up to 4.
All of them.
Yeah, but, so I could pay $5, get my bear tag, and I could, if I choose before I harvest a bear, buy a second bear tag January 1st. And whatever that fee is gonna be, but that's gonna be restricted to, well, actually, yeah, we'll have to have we'll still be restricted to the wildlife management unit, so there's any restrictions, but yeah, we could do that. I think that's the simplest way, because keep it, I'm all about keeping it simple. If I have to be on my phone, try and figure things out.
So that is what this language is intended to do. It creates 1 season. If you want to hunt bear at any time during that season, you have to buy a bear tag. If you want to take 2 bear, you have to buy that second bear tag.
You can buy them.
And learn what WMUs where you can actually use that second tag.
Right. The second tag would be limited.
Seems simple.
And that would be defined yearly by the department, because that could change.
Right. Without that targeting to WMUs, I would not support a second tag. In that there's been nothing presented that says that we need to have that much of an increase in the taking of bear in order to resolve social problems. But having it targeted to WMUs, which is why I tried to draw a parallel with the moose situation, there would be some basis for that second tag and for taking bears in that WMU, because we would know that the population is beyond the carrying capacity of the habitat. Otherwise, it's a free fire zone, just shoot a bear.
there's two things here going on. Combine, getting rid of the early and late bear season and bear tags.
And extending the season.
Yeah.
Yes.
We haven't got there yet, but right now we're looking at, can we vote? We do a separate vote on the getting rid of the early and late bear season? And then another vote on the two tags, or could we do it all at once?
Well, I think I just want to be clear here. When you say two tags, do you mean authorizing the taking of a second bear in specified WMUs?
Yes.
So essentially,
Defined by,
okay, this language here that's up on the board. Yeah, I think that if you want to take a straw poll to just determine the,
versus this. Just go
One season.
combining bears, getting rid of the early and late bear season. How about bear season? With the dates remaining the same.
I'm gonna also get rid of my comment because I think you all understand what we're trying to do here. And so this is the language that would create a single season. And I also, just to clarify, 5.1 is specifically what specifies that you would need a tag, a bear tag, to take a bear during the season. It's just gonna be one season.
I think that would have to be spelled out, like David said earlier, when you, for your license. There's gonna have to be something here saying, do you intend to? Are you gonna attempt to bear hunt? And if you do, you need to buy the license. It need to be something spelled out, on the questionnaire as you're buying your license.
Yeah, and I think that would would that be relatively easy to execute?
It's the same as the deer reg changes. It's an outreach campaign that's gonna have to happen as soon as we have approval. The other.
This will be easier to explain than the deer one.
Yeah, we've had a lot of people.
Yes. Yeah. Pretty straightforward.
Gotta make it that way.
So if we want to walk through these sort of one proposal at a time here, and I want to keep the annotated language up there. I know it can be a little distracting, but I think it is just relevant to see what's being changed. What the language that you would be proposing here is just this the first two sentences of 4.1. The rest of that season language would be eliminated. So it would read, for Vermont residents and non-Vermont residents without the use of dogs, the season is September 1st through the last day of the regulated deer hunting season. For non-resident bear dog permit holders, the season shall begin no earlier than September 15th. That would be it. That would be the season for bears.
A motion then?
I'll make a motion for that, to adopt that rule.
That I could. We'll get to that. There's that, yeah.
Okay, so we have a motion on the floor. 0.1 states. Need further discussion on that.
And it's the language that is shown in 4.1. That is the motion.
Yes.
And this does two things. It eliminates early and late season, and it extends the season through the end of the regulated deer hunting season.
Oh, okay. All right. And so with that language, it'll end up being hunting bears at least 2 weeks into December.
Yes. Currently, the end of the regulated deer hunting season would be the last day of archery season, which is
October.
December 15th.
Yep.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I am opposed to that extension of the season. Based on everything that we've heard, there's no reason to believe that it is what will address the social problem with bears. But what it will, in many years, ensure is that people will be hunting bears who have denned. I mean, I presume that the department's advice on bird feeders is still December 1st, with the full expectation that most bears will have, for whatever reason that Jacqueline explained earlier, gone into a den to hibernate. And even if not all of them are hibernating, but most of them are, and we're about to turn people loose, I personally find that not acceptable.
David?
We have a motion.
Yep. Any other further discussion? All right, we'll take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No,
Motion passes. Now we can move on to the tagging portion of this. Some discussion back and forth on that. Like the way it's presented by the department. Thoughts, discussion?
Just about the cost of the second bear tag, that'd be $5 as well.
Yeah, it is, right?
Yeah, there is, so the bear tag has a fee established in statute. It's $5. And that same fee that's established in statute for both tags.
The yearly WMU recommendation by the department would have to be approved by the board? Or would it be? Yeah.
Yes. I mean, that would ultimately be your decision. We would come to you with recommendations, the way that the other big game populations.
What is would you base, what factors would you look at to determine what WMUs?
Some of the stuff that we outlined in the current big game plan are around areas kind of with less suitable land use going on. So whether that's residential development, lots of agricultural development, areas where we'd be also evaluating the current and past harvests in certain WMUs. So looking at where there's hunting pressure, because, right now we're talking about trying to increase harvest to try to bring the population down to objective. But at some point we might be talking about where to limit harvest to let the population grow. So we'd be looking at kind of hunter pressure from that harvest data. And then of course, human bear conflict or human bear incident reports as well as kind of that kind of speaks a little bit potentially to incompatible land use, but also speaks to like that social carrying capacity potentially as well. Those are kind of the main factors that we would be looking at.
And we have a $5 tag. Second one's $5. Let's start it.
I second that.
Because it's written. That way.
We have a second motion on the floor. Accept the tags. Tag limit as recommended by the department. Further discussion?
It is the language in 5.3, is that correct?
It's 5.1, which would require you to buy that initial bear tag, and 5.3, which authorizes a second bear tag in specific WMUs based on the recommendations of the department.
Is there a second on this motion yet?
Yes, there is. Comments? Any further comments? Take a voice vote. All in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries.
And so I believe you did vote on this in 6.1. This is, you comply with the conditions, including effective dates and the bear dog permits authorized hunting through the second Sunday of the season. And that's the extent of the proposed revisions to the language that the departments brought forward. And I believe that the discussion is really now whether you want to add a prohibition related to being sows with cubs, bears in groups. We have some options for the language, but I'm going to turn it over to you to decide how you want to have that.
Yeah, I would like to open up that discussion on that topic, and believe there's some department presentation on that.
Chris Saunders has compiled some information from other states and Canadian provinces that you can walk us through.
Question for Jackie. Is it a safe assumption to assume that if we get it's a pretty safe assumption to assume that if we get the bear numbers in check, the conflict between people and bears is gonna go,
No, it's not gonna go away.
not gonna go away.
It will not go away. No. But
I kind of knew that, but I was just curious.
it might be reduced. It's, as we've talked about in the past, it's a very complex, complicated relationship. Food availability is a huge driver.
Yeah.
And so again, not dealing with all of our attractants, that's really the crux of this.
Yeah.
But the number of the bears on the landscape. They will-
So some of this is information that's probably included with the petitioner's document. But we thought it best just to give you a kind of a summary based on how other states and provinces currently regulate or not regulate the taking of either black bear cubs or black bear sows with cubs. There are 46 states and provinces that have regulated bear seasons, and there are 46 ways to address this problem. And it's just kind of an aside, with the US, we've recently had Florida, Louisiana, and Missouri start bear seasons. Florida being 2025, Louisiana 2024, and Missouri in 20. And of these, as already been mentioned multiple times tonight, 80% of the US states who have regulated bear seasons restrict the taking of sows with cubs and or cubs. Most of the jurisdictions are doing both. In Canada, it's a little more broad in how it's interpreted. While the majority do have some sort of protection one way or the other, there are more exceptions, there are limitations, and it's not just protecting both. In some cases, it's just protecting the sow. In the end, in the US, 7 states have no restrictions at all, and that it obviously includes Vermont, but it's actually a cluster here in the Northeast. That includes Massachusetts, New Hampshire, Maine, and Quebec. In Canada, it's Quebec, as I just mentioned, and also none of it. So looking at more broadly, you know, if we try to lump how the language is put, as I said, most states and provinces are protecting both sows and cubs and cubs. However, there are 6 jurisdictions that only are protecting the sows with the cubs, not the cubs themselves. 2 states only protect young bears, whether they be, or one's a province actually, young of the year and or yearling, and then 2 states also address bears in the group. If you do the math, this doesn't actually add up to the number of states with restrictions, and that's because some states have 1, 2, 3, all of these in combination. Which really leaves us with the most important definition is what is a cub? Because that's obviously important if we're thinking about enforcement. 8 states and provinces give no definition at all. It's just assumed. By far and away, age restrictions though do include what a cub is. Most of the time it's 1 year or less. It also includes know or should have known a cub. Now that's a regulation that Missouri just adopted, and that's copied from New York. New York's a little unusual, being one of those exceptions that the northern zone of New York, so everything basically north of I-90, does not have protections on sow with cubs or cubs. But the southern zone, which is basically all of southern upstate New York, et cetera, all the way down to New York City, that has this regulation of know or should have known how to cub. Just to kind of explain that it's not straightforward in terms of how these states and jurisdictions address this. Saskatchewan has at the heels of a sow. And then there's weight limits. These are more common. They tend to be more common in states where hound hunting really is supreme. So that's the Mid-South, South. They're more likely to have an actual weight limit on a bear. And then in last but not least, there are actually a couple length limits. So Michigan and Wisconsin have a less than 42 inches is considered a cub. And in the Northwest Territories, it's 1.2 meters, which is essentially 47 inches. But really when you take a step back, it's really age class that is what is most jurisdictions have settled on, with 1 year or less being basically, if they're not a gold standard, except at least most common, if it's defined at all. Then there's always exemptions and exceptions. And unlike a lot of actually hunting regulations out there, there are fewer I found looking at these protections than say a lot of other hunting regulations. But by zones does come up a lot. So New York, as I've already mentioned, northern zone, no restriction, southern zone, yes. In Alaska, there's actually a big chunk of Alaska where there is no restriction. And that's partly because they have what's known as what they label as customary and traditional hunts, because there is a First Nation Aboriginal tradition of den hunting in the winter. So that is still allowed in some parts of Alaska. And again, a lot of the Canadian provinces also have some sort of First Nation or Aboriginal exceptions. And then two of the Canadian provinces, Ontario and New Brunswick, the protections are only valid in the spring. So while, 80% of basically 80%, 4 out of 5 of the states and provinces and territories that allow bear hunting do protect sows with cubs and or cubs. There are a lot of differences among them. It's not black and white in terms of, what we can recommend to you, because there's so much variability. Which was fast, but are there any questions?
Thank you, Chris.
It's, there any, research done from a law enforcement standpoint? Here,
Chris really shared, those are by which law enforcement is operating, so I don't have anything specific to add that's not just anecdotal.
I haven't really witnessed or heard of any possible
Social scientist guy.
unneeded prosecution of hunters that might have made a mistake or this caused problems in those states that have, there's multiple states that have this rule in effect.
Again, it's anecdotal. Most of the states that I spoke to said that this doesn't really come up that often. I did get a spreadsheet from New York. I think in 5 years they wrote 4, 5 tickets. Excuse me. You consider the number of people in New York that hunt, that's a scopic number. So it's just something that's not addressed very often. Yeah, it's anecdotal and talking to counterparts, so that's why I'm not here.
I did notice, looking at language, I did a lot of research myself. Most of these states they say you can't shoot a sow with cubs. They don't say intentional or deliberate. It's point blank. So that in itself, that's a strong regulation.
Like New York is not in-person reporting. So when I talked to my counterpart, he said, if you think you might be in trouble, you just report it as a mail. Because it's all done over the phone. So again, anecdotal, so I'm not sure how helpful that is.
I looked at the laws and hearing this tonight, I think you gotta be very careful with that. It's not, you can't say 80%, because that's just not a statistics. You can make the statistics anything you want. It's method. It's regulations of method hunting. We heard down south is completely different. The way they hunt bear is completely different than we do. I mean, hounding is fun. And you look at the states who dating is huge, and the Canadian province is huge. So there's because it's different opportunities to identify the bear. I think what we heard petition and what we've heard mostly at least what I've heard and seen in the emails received, it's the intentional outlaw, the intentional killing of a sow with cubs. It's pretty defined, and that's what we've heard, and that's the examples we've been given. And so that's how I've come into this, looking at what I went down a rabbit hole looking at Arkansas and these different rules and trying to figure out, and some of these, like you can bait on certain lands, not others. It's just, too hard to figure out. But I've been looking at this as what's been presented to us as prohibit the intentional killing of a sow with cubs. That's how that language would be written. It's a whole different story, but I mean, that's I understood. That was what we're discussing.
Yeah, just intentional.
Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to see a person shall not knowingly harvest a sow the cubs present.
Different than intentionally. I would not be for that. that opens the door to interpretation and
Yeah, I like the intentional too, because you have to prove intent. That's language used often as in law situations.
The two cases we heard about a bunch of times tonight, the Stowe and the, whatever the other one was, that was definitely proven intent. They would have been prosecuted with that. They'd have been ticketed and prosecuted.
Presumably.
If it all happened the way we heard that it happened. I mean, you know, if it's on camera, it's pretty hard to say it didn't happen.
Be the easiest way to enforce this. If you have somebody on camera, that one thing. No. There's, you're relying on people to self-report. It's on camera. It's pretty straightforward. I guess trail cameras everywhere now. The definition of a cub. All these numbers that I kind of feel like we're gonna end, the wardens are gonna end up measuring measuring bears where there's. I don't think we want to go there.
Yeah, there's a lot of different definitions of cubs. The only one that I like at all was just described 1 year or less, but I don't even know if that's necessary, but so it sounds like there's general consensus that maybe this rule should advance in some form. What I'm hearing, I want to hear everybody's thought on discussion on this.
I'm for it. Just the wording needs to be
Yeah.
clear and concise. The deliberate or intentional need to be included in.
Yeah, Jack, ask. So you got a bear that weighs 75 pounds maybe? How old have you had one that's range?
I would say when we talked about this internally, we stayed away from those things because there could be a lot of variability. I've handled 3-year-old bears, 4-year-old bears are still under 100 pounds.
Right.
So, yeah. And again, to the point you guys have already made, some of these states that are doing it with real hard weight and size restrictions and requirements are, again, because they have a very black and white regulation around it where intent is not a component of it. And again, their harvest methods are associated with hound hunting, bait hunting, and that sort of thing.
What I was trying to push at or say is bears that are maybe that small, that's not real small, but it can be 3 years old or 4 years, right? They're not just 9 months or 8 months, right?
Yeah. Making a,
Yeah, cause I know about cubs that are 75, we gotta look at them and you can't shoot them or whatever, if you think it's a cub, so.
talk about
Technically, and I'm not advocating for this in any single way, you could shoot a cub.
Yeah. Yes.
not talking.
Legally, I mean, that shouldn't be a discussion or worry.
Right. Nope.
It's just the sow with the cubs being in support of her.
I think people think that just because they're that big or that small, they're all.
Bears reported in 90 pounds
Right.
on his, that's stressed out. So that's actually over 100-pound
Yeah.
bear. If people fixate, they fix that, they see the dress weight, not understanding that's the dress weight. That's not actually
Weight, the weight, right, on just the age, so it's not 9 months or 8 months old. It just, that's what I'm trying to say. Thinks they're cubs at that.
Yeah, just, and they're hard to sex and size.
Yeah, for people that say they can tell a female or a male. I
Yeah,
wanna know how they do it.
Maybe at a base station.
I
they
want it,
watch
but-
them for a while.
Yeah.
Jackie, what are in the fall, how many groups of bears would not be sows and cubs? But what are the likelihood of?
rarely, occasionally, again, rarely, you will see like sub-adult males sometimes group up. we've seen that at least a few different times that we've documented it,
But it's very rare.
not the norm.
So would it matter? I see some of them say bears in groups.
Again, I think if we're trying to focus on sows, cubs, we might, yeah. Because you could get these sub-adults that are grouping up, we're gonna be in that, probably again, that like 100 to 150 pound range, it's been my experience. Yeah.
But they would be of equal size.
They'd be
most
of
likely.
equal size with each other, yeah. Yeah, when I say sub-adult, where we've seen it, it's like 2-3-year-old bears. They're not like yearlings. They're a little bit bigger than that, but.
Yeah, I'm wrestling with, this idea of accidental versus intentional, like some of this language opens up the door for that interpretation of accidental. And I think what I'll speak for me, what I would be for is, that we're trying to be able to apply this to the most egregious of cases, which is intentional. And so just being really clear and simple in that language and not try to get into defining, because there's gonna be accidents. And I think we want to avoid bringing prosecution to accidental taking of sow with cubs that, well, was it in a group or was it a cub or a bunch of sub-adult males? It feels like we don't want to necessarily open that door. But the accidental versus intentional piece is like, well, what about people who hit bears with their cars? It's an accident, right? And it's the same thing happens in the hunting environment, like where someone might not know, and that's an accident. But we're gonna prosecute for the things that are really egregious and intentional. And I think that's like maybe the first step that we're trying to take here.
Yeah, I agree. They're getting too detailed or too defined in what,
I put some language on the board. Just as a starting point.
Oh, I'm sorry. Neil, go ahead.
Good.
Muted, Neil.
Muted. Neil, you're muted.
I can't keep track of two things at once here. I'm sorry. This is going out for public comment. So why don't we get it as close as we can to what our intent is? And then see where we fall with the public and come back and edit it if we need to.
I just would point out, I think this language is a good start, keeps it short, sweet, and it's
Right.
so the tension language I think is important, but also remind you that it's not, at the end of the day, the colonel, I think, would agree, the wardens investigate a case, they usually send it up. They're not the ones who prosecute, it's the either state's attorney general's office, so it's actually not the wardens who ultimately make that final decision. So we have to keep that in mind, because they might investigate it, they might send up for review, what do you think? And each state's attorney is different, so I think we have to be very tight with the language, and I think this accomplishes what the intent was. What I've heard, what I got in my emails was, and the examples that have been given to us, I think this language is, maybe has to be new massage at some point, but I think this is a good start and keeps it pretty direct.
Can I be a masseuse on one point in 2 sentences on what's up on
I'm
the?
sorry, you can't interact. Once the board meeting starts, we can't interact with the public.
The only point is to address the Stowe situation.
Can't do it.
This we're told.
No, so you need to stop, please.
I think I like that. Any other?
Because this is my first run through rulemaking process that came in at the end. So this goes out to, we have first vote, public comment, come back in, we can make changes to it. And either if it's considered a major change, it has to go back out of public comment. If it's not a major change, considered a minor change, it can go to a second vote, correct? So we have, the point is we have some time to maybe work on some language.
We do. We typically 3 votes. Can make changes at any vote, but
Yeah, so this will, if you, at the conclusion of this meeting, whenever whenever you're ready to do it, you'll have a first vote to advance this to the formal rulemaking process. And there will be an extensive public comment period, have public meetings, for folks to attend. When the public comment period ends, the department will compile all the comments that we received. And you'll also you'll see them as they're coming in, but we put them together, provide a sort of a rundown of the feedback that we got. And at that point, you do have further opportunity to modify the language. John, to your point, if a change is made after the public comment period that does not reflect a substantive discussion that was had, then the rule might need to go back out for notice. But assuming it's a change that is related to the changes that were proposed, that's a sort of a nuanced analysis. Like when something rises to the level of requiring additional notice, it doesn't usually happen because the comments you're getting are related to the proposal you're making. But then at that point, you have an opportunity to modify the language again. You'll have a second vote, and then that'll be the final proposal that is considered by the legislative committee.
further discussion on that.
Can she read that? Except this from. No, but. Yeah.
Do you feel this is votable in its current form?
It's short for close, I don't have it on.
Yeah,
I don't want to open
Yeah,
a.
I do think it is votable in its present form as a place to start what's going to be probably a fairly long conversation. So I would move to approve this language and move it forward in the rulemaking process.
Second.
We have a motion on the floor. Further discussion, Heather? Go ahead.
Accompanied by is going to be a sticking point of how that gets defined.
Person shows. That's who I'm looking for.
Why would it be a sticking point?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't understand that statement.
I said I'm wrestling with accompanied by and how we define that.
Within sight. Within sight.
Insight,
be in the presence of.
like in the presence of better,
Looking for.
because accompanied by means like the intentional part, if the cub is not visible at that moment, one could argue that it wasn't accompanied. So just as a starting point, in the presence of allows for the possibility that the cubs are nearby and there was still intent. They weren't visible. I think I'm getting,
That's the problem, right? It's sow, you can get 150 pounds of sow come in front of you, you don't see any cubs, shoot it, then suddenly that's not intentionally killing a sow with cubs. You didn't know. That's the mistake. That's what we're not trying to prosecute people who, but if you know there's a sow and cubs coming every night and you sit there and you shoot them, that's what we're trying to avoid that, right? I mean, it's my understanding. So, if they're saying, well, if you use a sow, so there's a 50% chance it's got cubs, you can't shoot it. That's not really what we're trying to, and you don't have that opportunity because we're not baiting, we're not doing, if you're not hounding, it's, I think, but that's probably language we'll probably have to better language, but I think for, at least tonight's purposes, if there, I mean, if there's different language, I'm happy to hear. I just, for today's purposes, but yeah, I don't think we're trying to say, because that's more if you should have known, it's a Sal, you should have known. So, because the problem is, you know, I can tell you sometimes I've been in the woods just hiking, like, oh, there's, you know, there's a bear, and then all of a sudden, not right away, all of a sudden there's some cubs that comes, they could be feeding or, you know, whatever. So I think what we've heard specific examples of people's like literally like there's a sow and cubs and feed them, that's what we're trying to avoid.
No, I got it, I got it.
Good with the company. So we do have that, we have to move, we have a motion on the table. Voice vote.
Could we clarify, is the motion just on this language, or is it to a first vote to advance this to formal rulemaking, the entire package to formal rulemaking?
Do this language and then.
I'm sorry, I may have overstated my intent. We're not at that moving forward stage yet. This is just to have language to put in front of us for our vote.
Yes. Okay. All in favor, the language in 7.6, say aye.
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 Opposed, no. Motion carries. We've addressed all components.
Yes, I didn't sound like there were any concerns about the revisions in 8.3. That was the only thing that I don't at length, but again, this was really just to eliminate that duplicative language about present.
So now we're ready. We can take a formal first vote now on the bear package in its entirety, right? So
We have discussed the entire rule, so barring any further change.
Make a motion to, I guess, make a motion to vote, first vote to approve the rule as said it. Second, that's the proper.
we have a motion on the floor for a formal first vote to advance these bear rules to the real public hearing stage. Any further discussion? Favor say aye.
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 All opposed, no. Motion passes. With that,
So the next step with the rule, I'll put together the filing forms, and this will be filed interagency committee on administrative rules that will look at consistency with the proposed changes and our statutory authority. And I will keep the board updated for the timeline on that. ICAR only meets once a month, so that, you know, we'll have to wait until they approve the rule before it goes on public notice. We'll keep you all updated on all of the dates as they move forward.
that we'll move to the commissioner's update.
Thank you. And thanks for this evening, everyone. I appreciate the thoughtful dialogue and all that you put into this. I know it's late. Most importantly, or maybe tied for first is the governor's office contacted me yesterday and they are set to approve 2 new board members, Caledonia and Essex. And we should have that, should have notification by next meeting and have those members present by then. I'm excited to see who the governor settles on. We had some good news on Friday. The Supreme Court, state Supreme Court affirmed the trial court's decision in the fur bearer rule that was instigated back, I believe, in 2022. I'm going to turn it over to Hannah just for a second to give any granular details on that case. I was not employed by the department at that time. So I don't want to pretend I know much about that, but I know that some of you were here, so.
I will just give a really quick synopsis in terms of, what's relevant to this board. And the part of the Supreme Court's decision was related to administrative procedure and how a court will review a rule that's been appealed over an LCAR objection. So generally speaking, an agency, which is this board in this case, is not entitled to its usual deference. Rule is passed over LCAR's objection. Instead, the burden shifts to the agency or the board to demonstrate the validity of the rule that's been appealed. In terms of the substance here, the court, all of the rule language that this board adopted was not arbitrary, was appropriate, and was in line with our statutory authority. So this includes the definition of control with regard to hounds, the definition of a public trail, and the rule that governs the location of traps set in water or under ice. The court found that all of the language that the board had adopted was consistent with legislative and was not arbitrary, which I think really, as I mentioned, really speaks just to the thoughtfulness that the board puts in.
Thank you.
Hannah or Jason, does anybody let the former board members know? Do you reach out with an email to them? I mean, a lot of hard work went on by some former board members.
That's a great point. We can do that. I'm sure we have contact information for all of them.
Thanks for bringing that up. And I guess to wrap up, there's been a hang up in the waterfowl process that John brought to our attention this morning that may may have to bring some creativity to the process of bringing us our waterfowl seasons to bear this year. John, do you want to just give them a quick update on that?
David, you should fill in as well, but for board members not familiar with setting the annual waterfowl regulations, all of the states throughout have to rely on what they call the federal migratory waterfowl framework. It's put together every year from the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service. It's based on lots of scientific data, understanding the population status of the myriad species of waterfowl that are subject to regulated harvest. The states need that federal framework in order to pass our own state regulations and implement our hunting seasons. And currently, the federal government is way behind in approving the federal framework. It's stuck in the Office of Management and Budget as we understand it. And there is a risk that it will not be in place in time for the states to implement regulated waterfowl seasons. So just something to be aware of. David, you want to add some details to that?
Yeah, that's exactly it. It's there's such chaos at the federal level right now that it's been moving through so slowly. We're talking with our federal counterparts, and best case scenario, we might get approval 2 to 4 days before the opening of the goose.
Doesn't happen, that doesn't happen.
Legally, we'd have to close the season somehow.
Yeah, and I think because our seasons are authorized by rule, if we didn't get that federal approval, we would have to technically request a suspension of an open season. I don't think it's a process we've had to use, but it would be.
Yeah, anyway, we'll monitor it. Thank you all for those updates. Legislature has gone home. The bills that we had discussed in meetings past are intact. The only one that the governor hasn't signed is the miscellaneous tax bill that removed our authority to set fees. Our fees are intact in a different bill, but I'm monitoring that closely because if the governor doesn't sign that, I don't know where that's going to leave us. So we'll see. They have a fun update for you the next meeting, but thank you again.
Sorry.
Yeah, go.
2 announcements about upcoming things. The 4 rules that were finalized, I guess technically the last one, the the tagging rule we just finalized at the last meeting, but, there is a public hearing scheduled for all of those. So this is the big game tagging, big game reporting, leash tracking dogs, and, the bow and arrow standards. There's a public meeting, a public hearing scheduled on those rules on July 17th. And it will be here in this room. I'll send a follow-up email just reminding you all of that. Those were very short administrative updates to those rules, but if you're able to attend the public meeting, it's nice to just have board presence so you're aware of what feedback we're getting from the public.
Thank you. And I have two more quick things. We've formally been blessed with Paul as our chair for the next 2 years by the governor. We got notified of that about 10 days ago. So congrats. And we do have a new fisheries director. So Eric Palmer, I think I may have mentioned in the past, is retiring July 24th. His replacement is James Brady, who is a program manager with the fish division now. And he's gonna double fill that position until Eric leaves, and he'll be in that role. So you'll see him in future meetings as they update the appendix 122. They do that every couple of years. Some of you have done it already. So
I can add, yeah, I keep it really late, but Vermont Digger had a really interesting article today. I didn't realize what's going on about how there's new proposed rules for the management governing of state lands. Full comment period ends tomorrow, actually. And the article's kind of interesting if you have time to read it, probably not tonight, but tomorrow, because traditions, everybody, they talk to everybody, traditions, there's a whole wide range of people, but it's my understanding this is a big rule on how they're gonna choose to manage state lands going forward that could impact hunting as habitat, et cetera. They're talking about old growth forests. So I haven't dove into it. I'm gonna do that tomorrow. Because when I got on this board, it was kind of interesting to, what Fish and Wildlife does is not necessarily in conjunction with Forest and Parks, who oversees most of the state land, I believe, right? So, yeah. So it talks about how this could, the article talks about how it could impact how we hunt fish in wildlife management areas. So it might be worth looking into. I just read it, saw the article this afternoon, so I dove into it.
Right.
I want to make a quick comment also in reference to the fur bearer rule lawsuit that was just resolved. Some of us were there when we passed those rules. When that rule did get passed, there was an error, final ruling that we all missed. It was, you could call it a typo, a clerical error, administrative error. I'll get into it more detail another time, but it involves the use of baited body grip traps on land. There was an error in the size of trap that could be used in that scenario. So I'm going to get this on the agenda for next month, and now we can get into it more deeply then, but it's going to involve opening up the trapping rules to fix this error. It's been a hardship for trappers for the last 2 years. We'll discuss it more next month, but just I want to let everybody know that's going to be coming down the pipe. So.
And the next meeting is on the 4th Wednesday.
The later in the month, yeah.
So Hannah, we had discussed that the 22nd was too early to have the next board meeting because of the public hearing timing.
Yeah.
For those 4 meetings. So I don't know if you wanted to speak to that. I was gonna send a follow-up email, but it's kind of.
Yeah, so the public meeting that I referenced that will be held on the 17th, actually, the department, I don't think had proposed anything for the July meeting agenda. Is that correct? That we did not, I don't think there was anything specific that we had on the agenda. So except the 4 rules that are currently in the public notice, and they just went on notice today. The leash tracking, bow and arrow standards, tagging and reporting. They went on notice today, and as I mentioned, there will be a public hearing on the 17th. Statute requires that the notice period remain open for 7 days following the public hearing. So I was really hoping we would be able to have a second vote on those rules on the 22nd, but because of that 7-day lag time, we will not be able to have a vote on the 22nd. So, all that to say, I think that, maybe if there are, we currently have sort of a hold on the 22nd for a board meeting. But I guess I would leave it up to people higher on the food chain than me to decide whether we need that meeting, since we can't do the second vote on the 22nd.
I think we're gonna need that meeting for what I just discussed about the traffic rule. That's,
We can hold it for that for now. There's nothing else that we would have on the agenda if that's the case at that date.
What date's that again?
If we have a meeting on July 22nd, nothing that the board is currently dealing with will be ready for your attention at that point in time. We meet on the 22nd, then the only topics will be whatever you elect to discuss, and the chair is suggesting the changes to the traffic.
Hearing's on the 17th?
Yeah.
Which is a Friday.
Can't just push the meeting back another week if everybody can make it.
I certainly could do that, and then you could have, well, there are a lot of quickly moving deadlines, around that time period. If we had, I'll just throw it out there, if we had a meeting on, I think if we had a meeting that the following week, potentially Wednesday, I could still, and you voted to move those 4 rules forward with a second vote, I could still get them filed for the LCAR deadline. So we could have a meeting on, what is it?
29th.
The 29th. If there is, a quorum of board members.
I might be out, I might be gone on a trip that week. Can't remember. But just thinking out loud.
The other option, is to have a meeting on the 22nd. And then we could schedule a special meeting, just to vote on the rules. And, as long as we noticed it, you could attend the special meeting remotely. Folks wouldn't have to come back 2 weeks in a row.
Does meetings have to be on a Wednesday?
No, they don't have to be.
Flexibility too. All right. Think we, motion to adjourn, or we have, any further topics, discussion?
Make motion to adjourn.
I second that.
All in favor?
All right.
How's your summer going?
Great, chilling and got out on the water.
Okay.
I didn't get as much